Hey, everybody, and welcome to the episode 14 of the FightFit Podcast. We've got a very, very special guest on the podcast today in Dave Hedgecock. I'm going to try and sum it up really quickly. Australia's first ever world champion for kickboxing, has trained multiple world champions as well, and just an all-round revered bloke in the industry. So how are you today, Dave? Thank you so much for coming in.
I didn't win a world title. I fought for two or three of them, but I didn't win one. That's the point. But yeah, no, they were great old days and very exciting. And it was premature to what it is now. It was very early days kickboxing, and they basically started with kicks above the waist. And Bob Jones, who brought that in as well, then brought in the kicking to the legs and the knees and the elbows, and then transferred to Muay Thai and international rules, which is. And you have a look at it now; it's a great sport. I mean,
absolutely, it's the best. That's what we're all doing here. So, I'm curious. I'll try and do it in chronological order because this week I've spoken to so many of your people. I've been flooded with references and reviews about yourself as a trainer, as a person, as somebody to work with. Nice. So we'll try go into chronological order. I'll try factor in all of the people that I've spoken to this week, but just to give people an idea. We're talking Stan the Man, Sam Greco, just to name a few. So, So where did it all start for you?
Well, I guess personally, I guess it started at home when I was a kid. My father was a ex-Navy merchant Navy champion, and they used to have the fights in those days. And he could always box, and he was always big on being able to defend yourself and your brothers and your sisters, and big on family values. And I remember the first day, the very first day I went to state school, and I got my lunch taken off me. I got a punch in the nose, and I couldn't wait to get home to sook to mum about it, right? And so she ends up telling me dad. So my dad says, "Hey, come out here." Takes me out in the backyard. He hops down on his knees and he says, "Now, this is what you got to do." And he got me throwing left jabs and then grabbing and headbutt. Left jab, grab, and headbutt. Now, that were the first two things he ever showed me. He said, "Now go back to school tomorrow." He said, "And walk up straight away and just go bang, bang." He said, "And at least let him know. Always be a participant." I'll never forget him saying that. Winning or losing or a draw doesn't matter as long as you're willing to participate. And people will leave you alone. They'll always try to pick a weaker opponent. So never be frightened to have a go back, because if you don't have a go back, they'll keep coming back and having a go. And I went to school the very next day, and the first thing I did was drop my lunch on the ground and went bang, bang. and a couple of school, and then from then on, I guess I realized, probably realized that you've got to be a bit aggressive. And you've got to be able to stand up for yourself if you're going to get anywhere in the world. If you sit back and let people push you around and do things, I think you can, you get on the bad end of the stick and you never sort of get back. But so that was the start of it, I guess. And then, I got into quite a few bits of fights around school. And I don't think I was ever a sort of person that wanted to start a fight, but I always involved myself in other people that were getting bullied or picked on. And for some reason or other, I didn't like to see that. I would say, "Hey, leave me alone. What are you doing that for?" And then it'd turn on me. And then, of course, bang, it'd be on and what have you. And so many, many years of that. And I suppose that developed in my later years as well.
Do you think that, the same thing? That sort of distaste for bullying came a little bit from your relationship with your old man as well? Because you mentioned that he was a really massive influence on you as well.
Massive influence. Look, mate, my father, I was fortunate enough later in life to have my father travel with me for overseas fights, to America and everywhere else, and be part of it, and got to know him not only as a father and a dad, but as a man.
The character that he is,
And I can only say that if I can be half the man he was, I'll be very happy with myself. And he taught me principles and taught me, that always be there for your friends, always be there for your family. And which is a funny story. I'll have to tell you a little bit later on. But he made sure that, it doesn't matter whether you win or lose or draw, you must participate. You must stand up for yourself. And you just got to be there and be a presence. If you see someone pushing your brother around or pushing your sister around, make sure that's stopped, and do something about it. And he said, it's very important that you have those principles in life. He said, but don't ever become a bully. He said, because I don't like bullies. And I thought to myself, well, okay, that's fine. And ended up going to secondary college, like Preston Tech, actually. technical school, and they made me a prefect. Not because I was clever at schoolwork or anything like that, but because I could stop a lot of fights and break up a lot of fights.
You kept the schoolyards clean.
Yeah, I kept the schoolyards clean. Yeah, and I didn't get paid for it in those
Yeah.
days. And then, of course, later on in life, I got into the security industry and kept hotels and pubs clean, and I did get paid for it.
Yeah. I think I was actually speaking to one of your mates, Brian, who you've been friends with for 63 odd years.
Oh, you went to school with Brian. Yeah. State school. Yeah, tech school.
And he told me a story that he was going to get in a fight one day. And anyways, he ended up giving the kid a bit of a touch up. And then 20 years later, he saw him at the pub. And he said, and this guy said to him that day that we got in that fight, I just got to tell you, Dave Hedgecock came up to me before and said, if you lay a glove on him, I'll belt the shit out of you. So he was like, weighed up his options and said, do I want to get belted by you or do I want to get belted by Dave?
Yeah, I do remember that. Actually, that's a long time ago, but I do remember that. Brian was he ended up being a mayor at Kerrang and places. A very intelligent man and made well for himself, done a very good job. And but he was a very educated and clever. You know, he used to do a lot of my schoolwork for me, to be honest with you. And so I had to look after him.
Keep those ones close.
Yeah, keep on side, you know. And no, but we've been fast friends and great mates for so long. He's like family, you know, and it's just the way it's gone. And occasionally we were playing footy together and all that sort of stuff and cricket together. And
he did mention that you were a pretty adept footy player as well, that you got the club BNF one day against, who was the other bloke who you played footy with? I can't remember.
Oh, that'd be back in swimmers days. The old swimmers, that was under 14s, and that was Gary Wilson.
Gary Wilson played over 300
Played
games.
for Melbourne, yeah.
Runner up in a Brownlow, but you beat him in the
I beat him in that comp that year, yeah. And David Dixon also went to play for Carlton, and that was in later on when we were playing under 18 stuff too. And you know, but I played alongside him, and I also then after that I ended up going and playing in open age. My older brother, was captain and coach of Croxton Parks, and he said, you know, we need a rover. You want to give your shot? So I did, and I was 16 at the time.
Yeah,
and I was playing in open age footy, and then of course after that I went to Preston Association, played quite a few games for them, and then I ended up playing with the YCW, and we won 2 grand finals. Yeah, so that was a real. But then,
you loved your footy as well.
I did love my footy, but it interfered a lot with the boxing and the other stuff I wanted to do as well, and the kickboxing, and so I had to sort of make a decision.
I guess when in regards to that as well, some people often wonder why people choose fighting over other sports that are perhaps team sports, maybe a little bit easier. It's a very hard route to go down to be a fighter. Why did you choose to become a fighter?
I think I admired I remember listening to Joe Lewis fight Billy Conn on the radio when in those days used to no TV. So we used to sit around the radio, listening to the radio and listening to those fights. And I can remember how motivated my father got and how much he enjoyed it. And so I guess I really wanted to please my dad. And in that way, and he was very much a boxing fanatic, and stuff like that. And then I remember when I first started kickboxing, he said, "Kicking," he said, "it's for mugs." But as we got along with it, he realised. He said, "Oh, this is a good sport." He said, "This is, you know, you're doing well," and you know, he was there for me all the time. It's a funny story actually. Chris Cronus and Con Brazales, they were running the Yakuza promotions, and Darren was due to fight Darren Hedgecock. He ended up winning a world title for us and everything else like that. And that was over in, what's that place just off Hong Kong, all the casinos? It's huge. It's very well known. I can't think of the name.
Is it in China as well?
In China, yeah. It's just
Shanghai?
Shanghai.
Yeah.
And we fought over there, and it was and we fought Eddie Tongalati. And Darren beat him and stopped him, and he was the world champion. So we won the world title over there. But I remember Darren was very sick. He was set up to fight Alex Tui, who was one of our great kickboxers as well. And I said, no. I said, mate, you've had the virus. You haven't trained for nearly 3 weeks. You can't have that fight, so you're not fighting. And unbeknownst to me, Chris and Con got in his ear and persuaded him back to coming into the fight. And then he tells me, he says, "Well, I've got to fight." I said, "You got to fight?" I said, "Good. Well, good luck, because I'm not going to be there." I said, you can't beat Alex Tui like this. On your day, you're good chance to beat him. But like this, no, you haven't been prepared well. You've been sick for 3 weeks. Crazy, you know. And then the next thing, I used to go down to my mum and dad's once a week for tea. And so I was down there one night, and the old man says to me, he says, what's happening with Darren? I said, he's still going to fight, but I'm not going to be in his corner. He said, what? He said, he looked at me. He said, what? And I said, no, I've told him he can't win. I don't think he can win, Dad. I said, against Alex Tui, like he is. He's been crook for 3 weeks, hasn't trained well. And he said, what's your last name? I said, what do you mean? He said, what? Hedgecock. He said, well, that's a Hedgecock in there fighting, and you're not going to be there beside him. Don't bother coming back for tea next week. Oh, Dad, crying out loud. What are you doing? Yeah. And it, strange enough, Darren went out there. He did his best. I was in his corner. And I had Alex Tui a bit worked out. We knocked him down 3 times in 3 rounds, but then all his energy just left him because he hadn't been prepared well. He had a terrible virus. He was very sick for 3 weeks before the fight. And then Alex Tui ended up knocking him out. And, I looked at that and he said, at least he tried. Brought back memories of what my old dad said to me many years ago, it doesn't matter if you win, lose, or draw, as long as you try.
Yeah. Yeah. And you participated as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a bit of a funny story. But, and Alex Tui went on to be a great fighter. But I tell you what, Australia is blessed, really, I've been a lot overseas and I've seen a lot of trainers over there and a lot of fighters over there. And really, we underestimate ourselves. We've got some great trainers here and some great fighters here, that people probably don't even know just how good they are, and a bigger population over there, a lot more exposed and a lot more money in it over there than what was in Australia to start off with. But people like Bob Jones, and that started it all off, have to be, congratulated for what they've done. I mean, without him, it wouldn't have got started.
Yeah.
And then we became part of the board, and we're sitting on the board and working out the rules and regulations for it. And otherwise, it wouldn't have been. And when you think back of the names of the people, like Frank Larciano, in my opinion, you know of Percy, of course.
Yeah,
Not many people know about Frank, but Frank was probably the best fighter I've trained out of all of them because he's a school teacher. That's
definitely not what people would expect, considering the resume that you've got.
Yeah, well, what when I say that, I say, well, he won nearly every fight he had. I think he got beaten once when Bob changed the rules from kicking above the waist to below the waist. And we had one fight there that we lost, which was close. I thought it was very close. I thought Frank could have won it. But anyway, we got decision given against us. But anyway, Frank's a school teacher, very intelligent individual. And he psychoanalyzed everything you do, and I want you to do this, I want you to do that for training. And he would go out there and he's a thinking fighter. He wasn't only physically fit and strong, but he was a thinking fighter. And he was just really first class fighter, great bloke. And he was probably one of the, as I said, one of the easiest people to train because he picked things up quickly, stuck to format, didn't go out of the plan, stayed within the plan. And of course, he, as I said, I think he won all his fights bar one.
Wow.
Yeah, he had a lot of fights. He was a great fighter. And then people like Eric Trey, Mick Marshall, Ed Beverlock, Tony DiCasio, George Zachariah. I mean, my God,
Yeah, a lot of blokes, a lot of great fighters.
Yeah, there are a lot of good people around, a lot of great fighters around in those days. And it's rather funny when you look back at it. And Michael Bergina, who I used to train, he's now training at Collingwood, training them in getting punching, boxing fitness. Jake Carr, who I trained, is now at North Melbourne training the footballers. And a lot of these guys have moved on.
I didn't know you trained Jake Carr.
Yeah,
I followed his career quite a bit.
Yeah, Jake's a lovely kid.
Yeah.
And he went over to America.
Yeah,
and he spent 12 months over there.
Some really tough things.
He did. And his father's death and everything else, he was going through it pretty bad. And he wanted to get back into it, and he come home for those reasons. And he come down and said, will you train me? And I said, of course I will. Yeah. Your dad was a great friend of mine, a great favourite of mine. And for a long time, his dad had wanted me to train him. But with who he was with and who he was working with at the time, he loved him too and was very loyal to him. But then he went overseas, and of course that created the break. And then when he came back, he wanted to train with me. So, got him going. And unfortunately, 6 burst eardrums. And, and I said to him, mate, you got to give it away. I said, you can't keep going. You're going to end up with a permanent injury.
You hear so many stories like that. It's so unfortunate of guys who are just so talented. Like we've got Cameron Eyes at our gym who suffered some like a bad concussion, and he just never really recovered from it. And the stories about him as a in his pro career and his amateur career, he was just so good. That's what people say. But yeah, some people just have to give it up because of injuries, and you see that it's such a hurt sport.
It is, and it takes no prisoners, and that's why it's a tough sport, and that's why you've got to be able to look after yourself and keep yourself in good form and do all the right things. But look, in those days, I mean, you people that Amanda Buchanan, first female world champion kickboxing female here in Australia. She went over. We took her over to Japan. She fought a girl 22 and none. And she ended up beating her and winning the world title. I then put into a Commonwealth title boxing fight, which she won. Commonwealth title in boxing. She's now living in Queensland, running boot camps and training people. Oh, mate, she was a gun. She was an unbelievable, brave person, and she just loved to train and loved to get fit and keep things going. Matt Try.
Actually, I did speak to Amanda today.
Oh, fantastic! She's a beautiful person.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's
well,
awesome.
she was helped run the underground gym with Matt Try, and Matt Try, who used to do security with me as well, and he's another great individual. I mean, he turned that gym into it was the only gym in town to be seen at those stages, and it was going 24 hours, the whole lot, and it was really good stuff. And took him over to Japan. He fought for a world title over there in USC type of rules, different. It wasn't registered on USC, but it was a USC type of fight. But I mean, he was very early into that stage with the mixed martial arts fighting, and he loved it. And he was a fitness machine too. But he's a builder now, so he's doing a lot of building. And,
I'd love to bring it back and know a little bit about your career as well. I mean. Tell us a little bit about your first few fights and then eventually how you sort of transitioned into professional.
Well, it's funny. Like I used to, me and Trevor Stretch Hansen, he was Australian heavyweight champion at one stage. He was tall and skinny, about 6'4", 6'5" tall, but only about 13, 14 stone. He was raw boned, and he's another man that had a huge influence in and of course got involved with boxing because of him. And we were doing security together. With some very well-known names, Pop Egan, and all sorts of people, Brendan Jackson, all sorts of people like that, and Leo Young. When you look back, people should remember that Leo Young fought a couple of guys out here and beat them, and they went back overseas and won the world title. Leo Young was one of our great fighters. Hilary Connolly. Australia's produced some.
And these guys, like, I'm actually not too sure about these names. Are they...
TV ringside days.
Yeah.
When I was a young bloke, kid, and when they were coming up, and all those Alf Peters, all those guys, and Wayne Bannister, mate, they're all the place was Melbourne was thriving, Australia was thriving with great boxers. Leslie Painter, he was always a good mate of mine.
And these are the guys that you were sort of looking at.
These are the guys that I knocked around with, and worked in security with, and what have you. And of course, that's how I got to meet Bob, because he had a different security company, and he was working in security as well. And then me and Stretch and Les and that were working our own security bits and pieces, and there's some good stories there, but that just and developed into other things. Like if Bob had a big concert on, like the Rolling Stones or Fleetwood Mac, he'd get us to help out with it and stuff like that, which was all a great life.
Did you ever meet any of them?
Oh yeah, well we did the Voodoo Lounge. I actually did the Voodoo Lounge by myself. Bob wasn't here, but did the Voodoo Lounge tour with the Rolling Stones.
Oh wow,
yeah, it was great.
Did you get to meet the guys?
Yeah. Looked after them, trained them at one stage, and took Charlie Watts' wife up to Singleton with Bill Morty, who knew a race guy up there who bred horses, and they get people over from Dubai and all overseas, and they'd all come in their fancy dress Arab sort of suits and stuff like that, and they bid on horse sperm. To take back and breeding. Yeah. So, and his wife, he said to me, you've just cost me £1 million. I said, well, she bought 3 lots of, and she was into breeding horses back in England. So
it's a weird thing that English people do.
Oh, mate. Yeah, some good stuff.
So didn't you say did you train the whole band of the Rolling Stones?
No, not all of them. Mick was the only one that wanted to do something a bit physical. The others didn't really want to do anything physical. They didn't mind watching and having a look, but no. Other than that, they sat
So
down.
you got Mick on the pads?
I got Mick on the pads. Yeah,
Does he move like?
mate, he moves like Mick Jagger. Believe you me, he's got a bit of sway about
Was he
it.
popping and
That's
waving?
for sure. Oh, he was doing all right. He was going okay. He hurt his hand actually because he was punching wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and but I sort of got that out of him eventually, and he started to punch better. So that is a better way to punch, you know.
Yeah.
But when I look back, you know, when you ask how it started, and like Barry Michaels brought out Dana Goodson. Dana Goodson was a great fighter. I trained him. Him and Barry had a bit of a fallout, unfortunately, and I started training Dana, and then Dana started working for me in Bombay Rock as well in the security, and then we got this fight offered to us in Sydney with Lee Rice, who was a world champion at that stage. He was another Negro, and so we went up to Sydney, and Dana beat him and won the world title. And then about probably 2 years after that, and he's still doing security for me. He opened up his own gym, which was down at the old Fitzroy. I forget what it was called now, but and he got a lot of Aboriginal people in there training with him and stuff like that. And he developed a few good champions. You know, it's then when Les Rallis fought Barry Michaels and Barry beat him. You know, I still remember Keith coming over and saying, "What are we doing wrong?" I said, "Mate, Dana and Barry don't like each other. Dana's telling Lester to go and knock Barry out. Lester had Barry beat in the first 3 rounds. You know, burst his eardrum, broke his nose, but Barry, very underestimated in Australian boxing, kept talking to him. Is that the best you got? Is that all you can do?" And breaking him down slowly and body punching. And he could punch the body. He was a tough, as I said, he's one of the most underestimated champions we've ever had. And slowly but surely was starting to get over the top of Lester, because Darren, go out and knock him out, go and knock him out. I said, "Mate, he's just got to get on his bike. Get on his bike, move around and box. He's won the first 3 rounds convincingly. He's hurt him. Just stay away from him. Why get in there and brawl with someone who you're fighting Barry's fight?" Eventually, Barry won it, obviously. And then there's people like Frank Ropers, and that nearly started a war between different groups, because you had the waterfront people backing Frankie Ropers, the Dockies and the waterfront people, and you had the other people backing Barry Michaels. And of course, Barry stopped Frankie Ropers, who was a great champion. But I don't think he could keep making that weight. He was a bit more solid than Barry, and he had to come down to a weight division that I don't think he was suited. If that had been up a weight division, probably be totally different.
It sounds like the stakes back then were quite a bit different, and there was actually a lot more, like, people were very emotionally invested in the fights, and there was a area codes that
of course,
this area code was for this guy, and this area code
you had a
was for
following
this
from
guy.
one area, following from
As
that
you said,
area.
the docs and the bookies were
exactly, and it was all intrigue. You know, it was all good stuff, and sometimes some bad stuff used to happen. You know, Barry got jumped in a club and got beaten up by the other crew because he won that fight with Lester, and you know, he was never quite the same after that. But
why did they beat him up? Because they lost money.
Because they lost money, yeah. So, but you know, when you go back over the years, it's been a diversity type of industry. When you look at it, Mick Marshall, Ed Beverlock. Ed Beverlock was an American guy that came out here to train, and tough as nails. He fought Ian Jacobs, and he was winning against Ian Jacobs, but he got a kick across the forehead, got something like 28 stitches across his forehead. And the referee saying, "I'm going to have to stop this fight." I said, "I can stop the cut." And what I did, I had some powder actually mixed up, because I used to use just powder. I put the powder on because it soaks the blood up, and then I put Vaseline over the powder. And of course, it stopped the blood, so he could go another couple of rounds, you know, to continue on, but then just kept bleeding and covering his face. So the referee ended up stopping it because of the cut. And I still remember when we went to Peter Lewis to get the stitching fixed up and done. He said, "What the hell did you put in here?" It had gone hard, so he had to reopen it and card it all, dig it all out, and stuff like that. So Paul Olwe, but Ed Beverlock now is training lots of USC fights. He's got a fighter that's run bronze twice, and he's in for a title. And I think he's actually training some of the trainers now for the World Federation. That
which UFC fighters do you know?
I can't think of their names. I'm shocked on their names, but Ed, I actually gave you his number to ring. Ed Beverlock. He was a great fighter and great personality, and he's really got into the UFC stuff. And you know, of course, Mick Marshall unfortunately got murdered at the front of his house and stuff. But he was another, you know, I took him over. We won a world title over there in America.
Yeah.
Ed won the North American title over there while we were over there. Took them both over.
Was Mick Marshall another trainer as well?
No, Mick Marshall was a fighter.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was a good and worked for security for me for many years. And he's a great bloke. And but mate, when you look back, I can think of the names Eric Trey, who knocked out Alex Tui, a southpaw from Sweden. Trained him for about 3.5, 4 years, and then he went back to Sweden. And different people. And as I said, Frank Laciano, Tony Lucasio, trained him for a little while. He was trained under Paul.
Lucasio, the great man.
Oh yeah, well, look what he's done. Moved on, breaking world records in powerlifting.
He's about to break a bloody another one as well.
Oh mate, he's unbelievable, isn't he? He's incredible. He's in great nick. And but gee, that fight we had over in Perth with Steve Daly, who later died in a plane crash, unfortunately. That was a fight.
Tell us a little bit about that fight.
Well, Steve Daly was and Rod Stroud ran Perth for Bob Jones in the industry. He's a great bloke, a great friend of mine. He's now a black belt third dan in jiu-jitsu as well. He's he does a lot of stuff. Roddy's a very tough guy, and consequently, Bob asked me to help out the corner with Tony, and Paul Fifield was also in his corner, but Paul Fifield was training. But Bob said, if you really want to win, we Paul might not be as experienced as you are, And it was a little bit, I thought it was a little bit funny. I think he would have been more comfortable with Paul, but he had the both of us in the corner. And so we did the best we could, but Daly was an exceptional fighter, and ex-army special forces and stuff like that. He was an exceptional fighter. And he beat Tony on the night, but by God, Tony put up a great fight. Just incredible heart, and that's when you realise, when you see someone like that handle a defeat like that, you just say, well, this guy's got what it needs to be a champion, and he went on to be a champion, obviously. So
Tony's whenever I've watched his old fights, because I love to watch old fights of especially the guys I know as well. And he had the look as well. He had the hair, good looking,
and tough, mate, and
tough, and just goes forward as well.
Just love the fight. And like in my early days with fighting, I went over for the first world titles with a guy by the name of Steve Shepherd, and that was in Florida, and it went 3 rounds, three and a bit rounds, and he got the decision by TKO. But as I've never been knocked out, and I wasn't knocked out. He hit me with a really good right hand, but my corner, and I was with Malcolm Anderson was in my corner at that stage, said that felt that I was in front for the first 2.5 to 3 rounds. And then what happened was he come out, hit me with a big right hand, and it stunned me for sure. But the referee didn't give me an 8 count, just come over, grabbed the hand, stopped the fight, and called the fight a halt. And of course, we complained bitterly about it because I wasn't knocked down. I was up against the ropes. He hit me with one punch. But I can remember the great fighter, Sugar Ray Robinson. And he fought a bloke by the name of Carmen Brasilia, and they won Fight of the Year both times they fought for the world title, for the world middleweight title. And Carmen Brasilia actually knocked Sugar Ray Robinson out in the first round. Sugar Ray was standing up on the rope, getting battered, and then all of a sudden he got hit with a punch, exploded back into consciousness, and came back like a bull, and only lost on points. And then, of course, he fought him in 58. That was in 57. And then he fought him in 58 and beat him, and re-won the world middleweight title back. And they were won 2 fights of the year, both fights. But so I don't think it's over until it's over. And while you're still standing, and I've been hit with all sorts of things, and I can take a shot. I've never been knocked out off my feet, and I really believe that I could have gone on, but I never got the opportunity. And we put a complaint in those days, but it didn't go anywhere. And he would never fight me again. So. And
you're still very sharp at your age as well.
I don't stop training.
I don't believe. And mentally very sharp as well. And you see some guys who, when they, they have too many fights, they maybe keep going. Do you think that's maybe you can attribute that to your innovative style of fighting?
I think so. I think that a lot of shots. I could always take a punch, and as I said, particularly in the security industry, I've been hit with all manners of things, but I've never been knocked out and never been beaten in a 1-out fight. And I don't put that down to being, I don't think I'm the best fighter in the world. I just don't know anyone to beat me. That's just my attitude. And the attitude that my father invested in me was win, lose or draw, have a go, be a participant, give your best. They won't come back a second time. And I've fought better fighters than me. Really, they probably looked like a mismatch for the first, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, particularly on the street. But when it goes a bit longer, the one thing I've always maintained is if you're not frightened of losing, you can control your adrenaline. I don't care as long as I give a good account of myself. You know what I'm saying? So I want to win, but if I don't win, well, but that hasn't happened very often. But the bottom line is I've been able to control the adrenaline. And I've had better fighters than me punching the crap out of me for 3 or 4 minutes. But they're the ones that go to hospital, not me.
Do you think that you can control that because you genuinely just don't fear losing, or because you just kept on not losing?
Good question. Good question. Well, I know that I know that a couple of times, I've because of the difference in size with some of the people. I mean, some of the people you might have spoke to may have told you about events that took place at the Pascoe Vale, the Lower Plenty, all these pubs. I've been in fights that have gone for 15, 20 minutes. I've been in fights that have gone for 10 minutes and 5 minutes. And what I've found is that I get thrown around a bit, I get beaten up a little bit, but the bottom line is I'm still there at the end, and they're either on the ground unconscious or they're running away or walking away. So there was one fight that Tony Thackeray might have told you about at the Simons where the guy died 3 times on the way to hospital, but he'd already attacked 3 of my security guys. I've just turned up, and all of a sudden I see 3 of my security guys at Simons putting this one big guy out, and he was a bouncer at the Croxton Park Hotel, a big bloke, and apparently he had a reputation of grabbing people and actually snapping their forearm or snapping their arm. He was very strong, apparently.
It's been a big rooster.
Yeah, and we had a couple of well-known identities working at Simons because you needed them, and and they'd been given a hard time with this bloke. And I'm just about to walk in the front door, and they're bustling him out and throwing him out, plus a couple of the managers from the Croxton Park. And I just stepped to the side and let them push him out. And I seen a couple of my blokes with marks on them and a bit of bleeding. I said, well, what the hell happened? Next thing you know, he's come running back across the road. He's pushed his mates away, come running back across the road. So I'm bang, bang, bang straight into him, and I'm forcing him across the road. But we get across the road, and he actually, I kicked him in the leg, and he fell to the ground, but he grabbed me by the shirt. And he pulled me down by the shirt, and I'm thinking to myself, my God, this bloke's strong. How am I going to get out of this? Anyway, so cut a long story short, people broke it up and stopped the fight from continuing. And then all of a sudden he goes, it's not over. And he come at me again. And so I just thought, oh, well, so I did a bit of a round loop and hit him with a big left hook and then foot swept him. And his legs went up in the air and he come straight down his head. And as I said, decent sized bloke, and this browny purplish blood started to come out of his head. And I thought to myself, oh my God, call an ambulance. I don't like to look at this. Well, he died 3 times on the way to hospital, but they got him back. He was okay. But then he charged me. And I still remember at Heidelberg Court. And we had to go there and of course, present it. And my solicitor just said, Your Honour, Mr. Hedgecock, can you come out and stand here? And then he asked the bloke to come out and stand there. He said, do you really think this man would pick a fight with this man? It was twice as big.
Yeah.
And of course, the judge agreed and said, no, I can understand the circumstances. And it was just an accident that happened when he fell to the ground and hit his head. And so that was that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I've always maintained that if you can control the adrenaline, that's what people get tired. And if you don't panic, you can just keep going, and the fight's not over till it's over.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing that separates people, isn't it? Because it's a very difficult skill to be able to control yourself.
Yeah.
And somebody who has no martial arts experience at all would basically have next to no chance of being able to do that.
Oh no, I think you can. I think if you really, well, you've got to be fit. If you don't train, and that's why I keep training. That's why I don't stop training, because I can remember a time at the Preston Market where I watched a truck driver abuse a very old man and an old woman in the car. I was my husband and wife, and the old bloke hopped out the car and he was arguing with him, but the bigger, younger bloke was pushing him around, and that really pissed me off, and I just went over. I said, yeah, and I pushed him back. I said, mate, they're old people. What are you doing? And he took a swing at me, and I ended up leaving him there laying on the side of the car park. And those 2 old people, I don't know who they were, but the woman kissed my hand. She grabbed my hand, and kissed. She said, "Thank you so much."
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, I can't stand bullies.
I've heard a few accounts of this. As I said, I spoke to lots of your friends this week, and 3 or 4 of them have said when I say, what do you think really sums up Dave? And they say, well, he's a protector and he hates bullies. I understand you have made a prefect at school because you could clean up the yard, as we talked about.
Yeah.
But then I had a few more stories about, there being 3, 4, 5 blokes giving one person a pasting. Do you remember any times in particular where?
Yeah, I can remember a few times like that. And unfortunately, today, the pack mentality, very few people would fight you one out.
And everyone's filming it on their phones.
It's and they're threatening people and all the rest of it. But in those days, you could still have a one-on-one confrontation. And I think that's the manly way to do it. I mean, if you've got a difference and you've got a disagreement, and one person either get in the ring and do it with the gloves on, or and that's happened. I had a couple of fights in the Bomb Jodes used to run fight nights on Saturdays and Wednesday nights and bits and pieces. And I remember I had an ex-bouncer who wanted to fight me because he didn't like me. So we put the gloves on, and Percy Larciano refereed that fight actually. So that was quite an interesting fight. I ended up knocking him out, which was good. Yeah. I was happy about that. But yeah, so it was all right. But I personally I don't think about what's going to happen to me if I lose, or what's going to happen to me. I just think about, I don't like seeing that happen, and I've involved myself probably too many times in things like that, and then had to, do something because then they've turned on me, and so consequently, it's just had to happen.
Yeah, and that would have obviously reflected in your security business as well.
Yes,
and the way that you ran your clubs, no drug policies, strict with that stuff, no bullying policies,
and we had our bits and pieces, we had our ups and downs. There's been some exciting times, but I'd have to say that when you look back at it, you think, my God, okay, but I try not to dwell on that and just keep moving on and just keep enjoying life.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing that I'm really fascinated about that many people can't understand what it takes to bare knuckle fight, and not just on the streets, but organized bare knuckle fights as well. I spoke to a particular friend of yours, and he used to help out running the bare knuckle scene back
Mick,
in the day. Mick told me a little bit about those events that used to be run, and that you had, I think, 11 bare knuckle fights.
A few of which in total, I had 8 here and 3 overseas. But he introduced me to the guy overseas. He had contacts in England as well. And at one stage, I was going to go over to England and fight over there in the bare knuckles. It's massive over there. And in Scotland as well, And that's what basically it is. The gypsies were the better fighters over there. But it never happened, unfortunately, because of things that had taken place and business commitments. But when I got offered I got introduced to a guy by the name of Robbie Rubik. And he was a lovely guy, and he owned a big compound in the Philippines, in Cebu, and in Manila. He used to buy machinery from Japan and then do it up and then rent it out and sell it off, and industrial machinery and stuff like that. And I can remember when I went over there to meet him, I went over 3 weeks before the supposed event, and he drove around everywhere he went. He had bodyguards. So I thought, oh, this is a bit strange, whatever. But so cut a long story short, I had those 3 fights over there, and he was a really good bloke. But not long after that, the last fight I had there, I didn't end up collecting the money and I was getting paid very good American dollars for the fights, because what happened that I'm pretty sure they set me up. They had been promoting another bloke, because there's a Navy base in Cebu and an Army base in Los Angeles, right, which is part of Manila. And what happens is, because the American armies and the navies were there, used to get a lot of people come in and a lot of people fighting, and they were pretty much into that sort of stuff. And I've seen stick fights. Oh man, are they dangerous?
When I went to the Philippines, I watched a few cockfights as well. They put the
blades on the
blades
feet.
On the fingers.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah,
they love blood.
Savage.
They love blood and gore over there. But unfortunately, Rob ended up getting murdered. After my last fight there, and when I beat the bloke, and I'm pretty sure they didn't think I was going to beat him.
Yes. Are you able to to go a little bit back into before you actually have the fight, and a little bit about the guy that you're fighting as well? Because I think that's so interesting that they put you against a guy.
Yeah. Well, I had I fought twice in Cebu and once in Manila, and the two in Cebu were with one was a Russian guy, and another one was a Filipino, and I beat both of those guys, and then they set me up for this third fight, and it was an American. He was an American Negro, and I think he was a Navy or Army or whatever he was. But I thought, oh my God, this guy's bigger than me, because if you're 60 kilos, you'd fight anyone between 60 and 70. If you're 70 kilos, you fight anyone between 70 and 80. And I think I was 71 or 72 kilos in those days. And he was obviously bigger and pretty fit individual. And they'd obviously been grooming him too. And then I think what happened was, because they didn't come in like they did the other times when I fought over there. They didn't come in and celebrate and congratulate me and all the rest of it. And, we always went out for dinners afterwards, and they sent the drivers in to come and get me. And the drivers.
So you felt something was a bit off from the start.
Oh, mate, I got because the way they were rude, and they're tattooed, heavily tattooed, smoking Filipinos, and really I just got this uneasy feeling. I said, I've got to go back to the hotel. I said, I want to get changed. No change. Come straight away. No, I'm going back to the hotel.
And this is after you had the fight.
This is after I had the fight.
And you'd beaten this bloke.
I'd beaten the bloke, and it was all over. And the promoters didn't come in. Rob Tubic come in to say hello, but he said, I'll see you back at the party. I said, lovely. But the other promoters that were doing it didn't come in, and they normally had have. And the last two occasions, they come in all over you, give you envelopes and all the rest of it, and great fight and what have you. But what happened was, this time they didn't, and the drivers come in. They were insistent. I said, no, I've got to go back. I want to have a shower. I want to get dressed. I've got no clean clothing, and it's, just in shorts and that. And so they said, oh, well, how long? And I said, oh, only 10 minutes. So they drove me back. I walked in, left them out in the car. I went straight to the reception. And in those days, I used to keep your passport. And I said, look, I've had a phone call from Melbourne. I've got to go home. I've had a death in the family. I said, so can I have my passport? I'll check out. I'll pay the bill, and can you order a cab for me? And the cabs were on the other side. They're like when you've got a big opening both sides, and they're out there in the car park. This cab car went straight to the airport and spent about 11 to 12 hours in the airport waiting to get a plane flight back to Melbourne. And because I didn't want to, and I had this rotten feeling that something was going to happen. And Rob Tubic later on rang me and said, mate, you did the right thing. I'm pretty sure that wouldn't have been a nice finish. And about 3 to 4 months after that took place, Rob was murdered. He got, because they have compounds over there. And to get into the compound, you have to be known. And these people drove in, and he went to the car to say hello and got shot in the face for 45.
Wow.
So it was a pretty ruthless type of area over there.
You must look back at that and be like, that could have been it for me.
Oh, well, yeah, I think it would. I think it would have been, to be honest with you. I really do.
Because obviously they'd been grooming this guy to beat you, and they would have lost a bunch of money, and they really
they bet against me.
Yeah,
obviously that's what I reckon's obviously taken place. But look, when it was here in Melbourne, in those days we used to have barrels, like a barrel every Saturday or Sunday or a Friday night. Someone would run a barrel, which is a barrel of beer, and they'd have barrels, and they'd have been someone's backyard or a factory or a workshop or something, and they'd have topless girls walking around serving food, and you'd have 7 or 8, 12 guys wanting to punch on with different people, and of course that was all good. And I thought to myself, well, this is a good, and it was in Footscray, Williamstown, Sunshine, all around those areas that he used to have put the fights on. And I ended up having 8 of those fights there, and won them all. Yeah, which was better, more luck than I got through it all. But I had one bad time. I can tell you right now. This guy got on. He was obviously a wrestler.
I think your mate Mick told me, the Russian guy.
Yes. Russian or Croatian.
Yeah.
He got on top of me, and he stuck his chin. He had one arm pinned, and he stuck his chin in. If you put your finger here, like in the top of your eye, and just press on a little bit, the pain is excruciating.
Yeah. You don't mess
Right.
with eyes.
And I'm on the ground and he's started to grind. What the hell's this guy trying to do? Trying to kiss me or something? He's starting to grind his chin around. And I've only got one hand. I'm trying to get his face. Oh my God, I'm in so much pain. I'm trying to get his head off me, his face off me. And for somehow or another, my thumb caught the edge of his nose here and it tore it all the way up the side. And he screamed and rolled over, and I rolled and pounded him, and won that fight. But I thought, oh my God, and everyone said, great technique. I said it was an accident.
Vic was saying that he spoke to him after, and you were like, what did I get him with?
I didn't know. I didn't know what I did. I said, did I poke him in the eye or something? I said, and he said, no, mate, have a look at his nose. Right up the side.
Oh,
so that was interesting.
What's going through your head when you're about to do a bare-knuckle fight?
Well, I had my reasons. It was very good money at that stage, and if you got to fancy yourself a little bit. You got to think, well, I can do this, and I want to do it. But
if you don't, you've already lost.
But it also puts a bit of a thing out there to a lot of knockabout blokes go to those places. And a lot of knockabout blokes, while I was doing security, sometimes would want to try to get in. And sometimes I couldn't let them in because misbehaved, or they got drunk and caused troubles or shot the place up or something, So it was sort of sending a message to them too. Then and they would say, oh shit, don't muck around with this bloke. He
So your motivation wasn't just the money; it was also.
Well, I'd have to say the money was a big motivator, but it also gave me an edge because we used to get a lot of knockabout people there. A lot of people that like that sort of atmosphere would go there and gamble and bet and all that sort of stuff. And mate, a couple of times there was some pretty big fights in the crowd too. You got different people from Collingwood, someone from Sunshine, someone from there. Different groups of people would come. And, so I remember one time we had one at the football club and it turned up into a massive all-in brawl, But just the way it goes. But what it does is a lot of people that would, what should I say, not necessarily all troublemakers, but a lot of knockabout blokes that were willing to have a fist fight would go to those places and they could then see for themselves. And then they didn't want to have a bar. And that was good. So, they didn't come. When I said, no, you can't come in, they sort of, okay. And I didn't have to keep proving myself all the time.
Yeah, that's a really interesting perspective as well. And so when you said there's a lot of knockabout blokes, I'm trying to understand the atmosphere of what one of these is it kind of like you get your invitation on the day sort of thing, you get invited to it?
Pretty well set up. They're pretty well set up.
So it's not like get the address on the day, very underground.
Well, he had his own crowd. Nick had his own crowd. He had football teams. He had this and that. People in pubs, knockabout bouncers in other places. And he'd go and tell, I'm having a show on the 25th.
So it's not like I'm bringing my mates along as well sort of thing?
Or? Oh, yeah. Well, bring your mates. That's what you want. He wants as many people as he can get.
Okay, cool.
Because he'd have 2 or 3 barrels there and have guys pulling, the barrels with the gun for the beer in the pots and plastic pots because when the glass ones were getting broken and, could be used as a weapon. Yeah. So, they did plastic pots, but they had a couple of topless girls walking around and blokes used to get there, and just get drunk, play, and then they'd have a game of cards going as well and all sorts of stuff.
It sounds like great fun. When you think about, underground bare knuckle scene, you think about, a big trap door with a man in a robe opening it for you. You don't really think about that like party atmosphere.
Yeah, it was a
Maybe
party.
It's just me.
Well, it was a party atmosphere. You got music going and everything else. And then they turned the music off and bang. And what they used to have was just they just taped down or pegged down a bit of tarp. And you fought on that, type of thing. Sometimes there was, and in some places, like a couple of gyms we had fights in, well, there was a ring already there, so that was even better still, but some weren't as big as what, and he liked big backyards or big factories because you can get 200 or 300 people there.
So bare knuckle boxing, I'm not sure if you probably would have seen that it's been legalized over in the US, bare knuckle FC, and then also bare knuckle boxing in London as well.
There's a mixture there that's legal but not legal.
Yeah,
but they let it go.
I think it's in one state it's legal, so they've commissioned it in one state in the US. I'm personally of the belief that I think that people should have complete sovereignty over their body and what they choose to do with it. I think that bare knuckle has a few sort of negative implications, but also has a few, like UFC with the bigger glove also might have a few more negative consequences as well?
No, I think if people, isn't it better than that? Getting in the ring with someone who wants to participate in something instead of going out beating up people for the fun of it.
That's another great point.
Or just for the sheer fact of wanting to have a, if you really want to test yourself, why pick on someone that does want to fight you? Why don't you go and have a fight with someone who is willing to fight you? And I think the world will be a lot better off. Look at Danny Green with the one punch, coward punch thing, how much that's generated.
Yeah, that coward punch campaign's massive.
Yeah, and it's huge. And because people get involved in fights that, just because my mates are in, and as I said, it's a pack mentality. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of changes over the years. Yesteryear, in some of the pumps we worked, if we had a fallout, the ring out, and they get all the blokes out in the car park, or actually in the saloon bar. People would ring out and you'd punch on, and you weren't allowed to kick anyone on the ground. You weren't allowed to use a chair or knuckle dusters or anything like that. It was just two blokes. And
so you got a human ring of people.
Yeah, human ring of people watching the fight, cheering on their mates. And I'd had 2 or 3 of those, plenty, in different areas where someone called you out or what have you. Particularly the Pascoe Vale. That was the old Pascoe Vale Hotel out in the car park, and it went on for a little bit of a while. But it's just funny area, different times, different people, and whereas today, what you see is a pack mentality. And the bullying is rife, now, and you see people getting stood over or girls getting, intimidated and stuff like that. And most times now, there's no lack of pride by 5 people getting stuck into 2.
Yeah.
Or 3 or 4 people getting stuck into 1.
Yep. I think the internet's played a massive part in that. I think that there's a lot of glorification of that on the internet, of like videos of people getting beaten up. And there was even this the game called the Knockout Game. I'm not sure if you ever heard about it.
No, I haven't heard
about it. In the US,
no.
there was this craze called the Knockout Game.
Okay.
And basically what it was teenagers who were walking around in big groups and walking past people and just knocking them out. Just completely.
Like what happened in Melbourne a few months ago. That bloke just for no reason at all. Guys walking along the thing. So that's terrible.
Yeah, and the Knockout Game, they film it and they put it on the internet. And there's this glorification of just of bullying, just blatant bullying.
That's wrong. Yeah, no, those blokes need to be, it's funny, I over the years I've been fortunate to associate with real men, men that had honour and men that had principles, and would step outside and fight you one-on-one. There's no 2 ways about it. And you see when you see tough people. I can still remember many years ago, Bob Jones and Richard Norton bought out, what's his name, Chuck Norris.
Yeah.
Okay. And in those days, the shows used to be fantastic. Like you'd have a display of martial arts going on as well. And Richard Norton was in the ring doing sai knives and samurai sword stuff with other people come in. And I swear to God, it's as good as anything you've ever seen.
Yeah, Richard Norton, for those of you guys who, for whatever reason, don't know who he is
have to know who he is. He's an icon.
Choreographer, martial artist in his own right.
Not only that, he does all the stunts. Yep. He's doing all sorts of movies with all over the place. And, mate, I was there that night, and he's up in the ring doing this stuff with the samurai swords, and, mate, it's as good as you see on TV anywhere. And no one knew, but he nearly cut his toe off. Didn't make a noise, continued on with doing what he was doing, just put a bandage around and stuck it so that with tape so that it wouldn't bleed all over the place, and continued on with the show. And that, to me, I mean, today but he continued on. And that's what I'm saying. Australia has some of the greatest, in my opinion, innovative, great fight. Look, he's doing jiu-jitsu. He's doing stuff all over the world. And, I mean, he's one of the best martial artists this country's ever produced.
I mean, I was fortunate enough to speak to him on the phone this week as well.
Okay, good.
Richard Norton.
Yeah.
And,
he's a great bloke.
Lovely bloke as well.
Oh, mate, absolute gentleman.
Lovely bloke.
Nothing to prove.
Very wise as well. Really thinks about his words. And, it was a real pleasure. It's been like a dream this week. All the guys that I've grown up watching and grown up idolizing, to speak to them on the phone felt pretty important.
Well, when you think back at it, you look at the likes of what we have produced, the Stan Loginides, Sam Greco, all these guys. When I went over with Tarek, so there's another one now. Tarek Silek really lifted the shows out of just normal type of shows into something extravaganzas. You know, he's overseas now promoting in France and Greece and Turkey and all over the place. And he had this ideas, and he was just so, you know, explain like the fire flames coming out and bringing over interstate overseas fighters and all that sort of stuff. It's fantastic. I mean, he's really, you know, Bob started it, brought it along, and then when that sort of died off a little bit, then all of a sudden K1 come involved, and then UFC. Look at where UFC's gone to now. It's fantastic. I mean,
I think that's what people forget when I hear somebody like you talking, is that you're talking about before UFC, when you know, to most people, martial arts and fighting was a little bit taboo, you know. And I can't really say that, but yeah, I mean,
you know, if you had a problem, that's how you used to sort it out.
but I just mean the mainstream nature of it now, and you've got guys like Conor McGregor and John Jones and these guys who are just
the money
household names.
Yeah.
And UFC is just one of the biggest, most fastest rising sports in the world.
Look, all I can say is that it's been an amazing journey for me, with the people I've met and the people I've associated with. The Bill Mordys, the Brian Armatrudas, the promoters, the matchmakers, Stewie Duncan, been all overseas, spent more time in a hotel room, Stewie, than I've ever a girl. So, you know, and all sorts of stuff there. And people don't realise just how good we've got it here, and we've got some great participants and some great, you know, people that are as good as anywhere in the world, if not better. You know, and I keep thinking about some of the fighters we've had, and some of the people that are coming up now as well, and the Steve Marks, the Lester Ellis's, all those guys, you know, that were great fighters, and they're all getting a bit old senior now, but their kids are now promoting fights, and the fight game has improved amazingly. It's just gone from, you know, growth to growth. But some of those guys at the old days, I think it was a lot tougher in the old days. It was a lot more. They didn't have the money, and wasn't for money. It was all about, you know, pride and a little bit of respect. It has changed a lot, and but Matt Try, you know, he was one of the first guys to take up UFC, or that style of fighting, or mixed martial arts, let's call it, in Australia. He was, you know, he fought quite a few different people, and it was in its beginning. And then, of course, the jiu-jitsu side of it came in, and bits and pieces, and so you've got all that happening now too. And it's when you see but everyone's gone back to the stand-up to a certain extent, because it's more, the public likes it better. You know, what the trouble with boxing is, I had the benefit of my father used to be, and myself used to pick up most of the fighters that Bill Mordy brought out here in the Jeff Fenix reign and Costa Zoo reign, and great fighters like that. And you know, there's some great stories there where he bought out George Foreman for Galaxy TV before Foxtel. Galaxy TV was
really,
and he bought out George Foreman to help publicise it in every state. And I remember down at the underground gym, we had Kids for Cancer, and we decided to. And I remember asking George. I said, we're doing a kids thing. They're all kids under a certain age, under 10 or 12, that are dying of cancer. We've got a thing on down at the underground gymnasium this weekend. You know, do you think you could come down? And he looked at me, he said, Kids for Cancer, kids dying. I said, yeah. He said, I'll come. He said, come and pick me up. Don't say nothing to the suits. What he meant by the suits was his solicitors and the people that were promoting him, you know. So I picked him up, and he comes down, and somehow or another it got out. And there must have been 200 or 300 people at the gym. And he's walked in, and he's just had a look at all these kids. All these kids have run up to him, put their arms around him and stuff like that. And he says...
And people had no idea he was coming down.
No, well, we tried to keep it secret, only for the Kids for Cancer.
Yeah, of course.
And the parents, you know, and stuff like that. And he says, tell the driver to go back to my room and bring back 4 or 5 boxes. And he said, full of T-shirts. And he come. And the bloke went and got them, brought them back, and he gave every kid a T-shirt. Now, they're all George Foreman T-shirts, you know, big size T-shirts. He gave every kid one. And the next day in the Herald Sun, there was a photo of George Foreman like this, with a kid sitting on the bicep, you know, and it was beautiful. And it was just, that's when you see real people. And he was really moved by the fact And and he was just so pleasant and talked to all the parents, talked to all the kids, and stayed there for 3 or 4 hours. You know, he's supposed to be walk in and walk out, you know, but that's the sort of bloke he was. And other great fighters, Asuma Nelson, we picked up Asuma Nelson for the Jeff Fennick. Asuma Nelson blew in Princess Park. And I remember picking him up, and it was a morning. And I said, would you like to go straight to a hotel room, which we had booked for him, everything else? He said, no. He said, I'd like to go to a gym. I said, oh, okay. I said, I've got a gym in South Melbourne, which we had at that stage. And so we get in the gym, and he's got his little bag with him. He got changed, and I don't know why. I said, is there anything you want me to do? No. He said, I just want to warm up and do something myself. And so he skipped for 2 rounds. Then he put the mitts on, and he punched the bag. Now, why only for 9 rounds, I don't know. But he did 9 rounds on a heavy bag, and I thought to myself, my God, the bag's going whoosh, 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 all over the place, and he's just unloading. Yeah. Now, I was lucky enough to be a guest of Bill Morty's when Jeff fought him in Los Angeles, right? At Las Vegas, sorry. And that was a very close fight, a lot closer fight than what a lot of people expected. You look onto the video, and Jeff, everyone thinks Jeff won. I thought he won too, but Asuma Nelson's wife had only died 3 or 4 weeks earlier, and he said to me, he said, "I'm fit this time." He said, "And I will knock him out." I said, "Oh, right, that's a big markup, you know, whether or not you're good enough to and all whatever." But I'd never seen anyone explode on a bag so much. And I thought to myself, oh my God. And I went straight back to Bill Morty. I said, mate, this guy's a machine. He said, oh, well, yeah, da. And of course, he won the fight. He stopped Jeff, and I got his wraps, cut his wraps off and gave them to me. Yeah. He also come to my mum's for a roast lamb dinner. You got no idea. The people that have been to my mum's house for dinners, Emmanuel Stewart, you know, what's his name? The one that fought Jeff Harding. I can't remember their names for the world title. That got a great fight. And Michael Mora.
So it's a bit of a tradition. You bring him to your mum's house.
Oh, yeah. My dad would pick him up and say, oh, come and meet the old lady, you know, come down for a roast dinner. Oh, a roast dinner. I didn't know what it was, you know. But it was, but some of the people that walked through the doors at my mum's place and mum and dad's place we picked up all the imports. We looked after all the imports, and we took them to the gyms, whether they be in Sydney or here. You know, we looked after.
So big fighters that were coming over
to fight Jeff and Costa Zoo.
Was this to do with you having such a good relationship with Tarek and with
Bill Morty?
Yeah,
Bill Morty, a great relationship with Bill Morty, and you know, he also he sort of asked around a bit and had a lot of contacts here, and a lot of people used to take him down to Leo Berry's gym to train, and bits and pieces all over Australia, you know, in Melbourne. So it was just a matter of knowing the places to go to. I remember one time we went to Fidel's, the steakhouse, which in Richmond, which was famous in those days, and we took George Foreman down there. He was wrapped, you know, and the owner come out. He said, "Oh, what sort of steak would you like?" He said, "Do you think I can have a little bit of everything?" Because there are all these different cuts, you know. But you get the meat. And Emmanuel Stewart sent my dad a beautiful letter and a jacket from the Bronx gym.
Oh, wow.
You know, and
you guys still have it?
Yeah, still got it. Yeah. So he was very well loved. My dad was loved, very well loved by everybody, because he just treated them like normal human beings. And
sounds like it. So was this when George Foreman came out? Was that before or after the Rumble in the Jungle?
Oh, that was after the Rumble in the Jungle. George Foreman had finished for a while. And what happened was that he then got into George Foreman Cooker and all that sort of stuff. But Galaxy TV, which is now Foxtel, started off as being Galaxy TV. And they brought him out here to promote Galaxy TV. That's what it was all about. And, of course, Bill Morty jumped on board as part of the sponsorship, and then got him to do talks, and we had dinners and speeches, and he had a big, like a ball, like a gathering of people to come for dinner and listen to George Foreman talk, and he'd walk around to all the tables and stuff.
He sounds like a really great guy. Oh, he has such a fascinating story because that whole, you know, Rumble in the Jungle sort of thing. And then apparently, I'm not I'm not too knowledgeable about the subject, but apparently after that fight, George Foreman went into like quite a severe depression and was quite down for 4 years or so after that. And I wonder how much that really shaped him as a person.
Well, then he became a commentator for HBO and places like that. And I think it created a very humble, a very different George Foreman, because he used to make a living collecting money for people. So, he was a pretty hard man. But I think he was very religious, very, very religious. But he just, when I seen that way he handled the kids, I thought, wow, you're a good man. You're a good bloke. He put his time and effort out. It was really good. But but it's funny, you speak about fighters and different people, and of course, Sam Solomon, trained him for 25 years, and then after 25 years of training, a little bit of a difference there about where his career's going and what have you, and he decided to venture out by himself, and he lost his next 3 fights, stoppages, every one of them, and so just. And I think back at that, and I think, well, that's a shame, because he was a fighter that really didn't have a lot of skills, except for the fact that he had a good chin and he loved training hard. If I asked him to do 20 push-ups, he'd do 50. He's that sort of guy. You want him to do 10 rounds, he'd do 15. He'd push himself. But his biggest problem was himself, because you need to contain that. You need to stop that. It needs to have a limit. Otherwise, you're going to overtrain. And this is the problem with Sam. He used to do that a lot, and I used to have to pull him back into gear. And I still remember when his father died. His father was a partner in the two-up, with Kevin Waterson and people like that, and he died quite, of a heart attack, quite young. And his mother said to me, "Please be like, treat him like his father, be a second father to him." And of course, you do all that, and then after 25 years. And through someone I hired, a person I hired to help us out with the phone calls and paperwork and stuff like that, but really no boxing experience, but a good organizer. And consequently, we had a couple of fights. We won both those fights with Felix Stern, and there's some funny stories there. Let me tell you, we nearly had a huge punch on at the first one.
Please tell me. We've got nothing
oh, mate. Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so it was quite funny, because we're there, and it's an argument over the gloves. We're number 1, he's number 3. All right, it's Felix Stern. And I said, well, how come he's picked his gloves? We should be first pick. And Darryl Peoples was there from the IBF. And anyway, and a bit of an argument started there. And I said, well, look, that's it. We're not fighting, if that's the case. I said, we've bought a set of Rays. You've got a set of Grants. But have a look at this. I pulled out a photo of Elvis Grant, who makes Grant gloves, with Felix Stern, saying about he's made a puncher's glove for Felix, you see. So I said, and Darryl People says, oh, well, how do we tell the difference between a puncher's glove and a normal glove? Because a normal glove, people might have sore hands, a little bit softer. For a puncher, hard, because, da-da-da. So, and they said, oh, that's rubbish, it's only publicity. I said, well, if it's only rubbish publicity, we'll have those two, you have these two.
Yeah.
And they didn't want that. They argued black and blue, and it caused a big stink. Anyway, eventually we got our way. I said, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. I said, if we're going to use Grants, how about this? We swap one glove each. So I took the right-hand glove and gave them the other right-hand glove,
Yeah.
And that, what can I say about that? There's nothing I can say, but it's the fun and games that go on.
The same colour?
Oh, they're the same colour. but it's the fun and games that go on in the hearing meeting, the rules and regulation meetings and stuff that go on. And of course, as we're walking out, one of his corner has a bit of a go at me. I said something. Of course, Boxer John goes, you want to have a go? You want to have a go? I'm going, settle down, John, relax, settle down, have a look around, settle down. There's 4 of us. There's about 24 of them. So it's just some good experiences about that. And, it's about, I trained training specifically for that fight. And the trouble is Sammy tries to overtrain. And sometimes he does some silly things like runs in the rain and then ends up with a cold and can't train for 3 or 4 days. And then he decides an ice bath will do him good. So he goes, instead, because there's no ice bath, he jumps in the canal in Copenhagen in the middle of winter. And if it hadn't been for a very good mate of his, an ex-SAS guy that's pretty conditioned and first-class guy, he dived in and saved him. Otherwise, he would have drowned. Oh. This is the sort of stuff that they do behind you. And he did it with the manager at the time, because the manager didn't listen to me. And I said, no, you can't let him do this.
You must have given him a pasting.
Oh, did I? What? And you've got to contain him, because he's his own worst enemy. He tries too hard. And really, he was so on the front of world title that really didn't have a big punch.
What did he have?
Well, mate, he had a desire to win. He was so keen and brave, and very good chin, and very fit. And but we get him to get that fit. You can't go over it, because if you train over it, you never just. And he would listen to what I said to him to do in the corner. We would fight a specific way. And I remember the third corner of the first fight, he got hit in the third round with a left hook or right cross, whatever it was, and knocked him down. I said, Sam, you're going the wrong way. What have I told you? You've got to go to your right side, not into his right hand, not your left. You mixed it up, and then you went to the left and bang, you've hit the deck. You know, and gone, yeah, okay, I understand. And, you know, I would tell him, okay, you're behind, mate. You need to do something. Then, of course, the second fight, which was very controversial, because they said that he had drugs and we hadn't. That's not true. And the second fight was a controversial one, because they then also said, I said to Sam, okay, we've got to train differently this time, because he'll train for you this time. He'll train to try his style. So, yeah, we do 4 rounds, 3 different ways. And I incorporate a lot of wrestling and grappling in that, because the first 4 rounds, he does a lot of holding on, a lot of grappling to tire his arms, to take the sting out of his punch. And he won the second fight so much easier.
Yeah.
So it's all about strategies. And Sam had the ability to listen and to coordinate and do what I asked him to do. But you had to tell him sometimes, don't do this, don't do that. And he'd overtrain. And that was his.
But I mean, having spent 25 years coaching him, you would have known him to a T.
Oh, exactly. And from a young kid.
Yeah.
To an adult, you know, he was running around getting.
You would have known all of his strengths. You would have known all of his weaknesses. You would have known if he was coming in flat. You would have known if he was coming in hyped, and you would have been able to tailor each fight.
And other people
session.
think they know, but don't know. And then I'm having a go at them, which has created a bit of a thing. But they all said to me now, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. And, you know, people like John Locko and people that were behind him all the time, still behind him now and still help him out. They were great blokes. They were all for Sam, 150%. And they helped him with money, helped him with business ideas, and helped us out, you know, came as a team. They came across to Germany both times, you know, to back us up and to be there as a team and to be part of it. It was some very good years and some good times.
Yeah, I remember, you know, having spoken to some of your friends this week about you as a coach, the thing that sticks out to people is that you have an ability to read each fighter and tailor your coaching to each fighter differently, play to their strengths as well. Yeah. Tell us a little about that.
Well, I mean, when you know who you're fighting, and you know, you have a look at them and you work out their strong points and their weak points and bits and pieces. And then you train accordingly. Too many people just train the same way. Bang, 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 at the same routine. Come in, skip, do this. I mix things up. You might skip the warm up, but then you might do 1 round on the ball, 1 round on the bag, 1 round on the pads. But you might do that, and then we do punch counts and stuff. And so we keep always changing it. Everything's urgent. You've got to run from that bag. If you're doing 30 seconds on that, you've got to run from that bag to that speed ball. And do 30 seconds on that, and then run to the floor to ceiling ball and do 30 seconds, then run to the uppercut bag over here on the wall. And so everything's urgent. You fight for 3 minutes, you rest for a minute, and then so everything has to be urgent. So you're doing 12 to 15 rounds at that urgency. And I really think that it was that sort of training, and I'd work out their styles like I did with Winky Wright, southpaw, you know, pound for pound, one of the best fighters of his time. I said, Sam, when you throw your right hand, throw to his left hand, to his right hand, right? Yeah, because of southpaw, obviously. I don't want you going to your right side. I want you going to your left side. So step through with your right leg, then bomb the left hook and come back off the right uppercut and then right cross. Well, we made that work so many times, and it's a very controversial fight. You know, I think
many think that you won that.
Yeah, well, I personally thought we won it. But Winky Wright got a knockdown. He did knock him down at one stage in 1 round. But then Sam got up and went on with it and and chased him. His comment was it was like being in a phone box with 12 fighters all at once. He said I couldn't work out where he was going and what he was doing. You know, and I believe we did win that fight. But it's because of we trained a specific way. You know, and you've got to know how to expose other people's mistakes. See what they do. See what this guy does. See how he goes backwards. He doesn't throw a punch. He only throws punches when he's coming forwards. And see how he catches and smothers while you throw 3 punches, but then he comes back and counters. So if you stay there any longer than throwing 1, 2, 3, you're going to get countered. So throw 1, 2, 3, move your direction. throw another 1, 2, 3, move another direction. And that way it really frustrated him because he never got a chance because he was like this, hands up, and then he'd try to counter. Once you've thrown 2 or 3 punches, he'd come back with a counter. Well, if you're not there to counter, you can't hit you. It becomes very frustrating for the other opponent. And we learned, we did things where, okay, as soon as you throw your punches, lock him up. Make him use his strength. Make him try to wrestle you. Make him, tire his arms out. Take the sting out of his punch. Because let's face it, Felix Stern was a great fighter.
So you had to really tailor that to each individual fight
to the extent where we took
opponents.
Boxer John across to Germany with us to hold the pads, but to hold the pads the way I wanted to hold the pads, so we could execute certain techniques to unload on Felix Stern. And Boxer got split lips and all sorts of stuff out of it. And but it's what it was all that effort there that won us the fight. So it was, and it is, you've got to study, you've got to know what your fighter can do. You've got to know their strengths and weaknesses, but you've also got to look at the other person's strengths and weaknesses and work out a plan. And if you stick to the plan, it's only when you don't stick to the plan, you just go in there and wail away, that you're going to get hurt or get stopped.
I'm curious about the depth to which you think about fighting, and have you cultivated this just over a career of fighting, or do you feel like, I'm going to say again, having spoken to your friends this week, I've had one person, Maurice Jones, sort of quoted you as being a Picasso, like an artist. Another one of your friends said that you were like an Einstein of fighting. So did you cultivate this over a long period of time, or do you feel like it's something that fighting comes naturally to you?
I think for some reason or other, I've always been able to find, I've been in some pretty dicey situations, but I've always been able to find the key that unlocks the door.
Hedgecock Angle.
Yeah, of some description. And what I teach is a little bit different than most. But when you practice it and see it, you can go, if you've got half a brain, you go, well, that's fundamental, that works, and it will work, and it keeps me out of the center, keeps me out of getting tagged. And consequently, if you train it and train it and train it, and you can prove to the person that this is the best way to do it, they then embrace it and try and practice instead of just doing the normal, what everyone else does. And I think that's very important. There's a lot of good trainers out there. A lot of good trainers. One of my dear friends, Ray Giles, one of the most underestimated trainers in this country. He's trained so many champions, Australian champions, world champions. He's just a great trainer. He's also trained footballers like Joe Watson, won the Brownlow medal, and thanked him. And Hannaberry from South Melbourne, thanked him. Yeah. So Ray's a real, and I used to talk to him a lot about different things and about different training. And different, because he used to train athletes as well, runners as well. And so I always used to mix it up. I used to think, well, a fight's never the same. It's always a bit of this, a bit of that. And you have a look at who you're fighting, and okay, we need to make you stronger for this fight. We need to make you faster for this fight. You need to use these angles for this fight. You need to do this. You need to be on the front foot all the time. And you assess what you're going into competition against. And I guess I've always been able to pick bits and pieces where flaws in someone else's style and what they do on a regular basis and what you need to do to counter that. And it's always worked. It's always worked for me. And I think a lot of stuff I've learned out of necessity, for myself, being involved in a few bits and pieces. And I'd have to say my training and my thought patterns has kept me alive.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So because there's been a couple of times it's, where they haven't just shot me, but they hit me over the head first because they were going to take me away. They didn't want to shoot me there because it was too public.
Yeah.
But they hit me over the head with something to try and take me away. But I've managed to, once again, angles and positioning, keeping someone, like I was explaining to you before, as a shield against the other person. Yeah. So it's, and it's just something that for some reason or other, I just have this, because I've done a lot of different.
I guess your experience in this field is pretty much, to anything I've ever heard, it's unrivaled. The amount of experience you've got in terms of security. Like I've never met anybody who's had, the coaching, the career themselves, the bare-knuckle, the security. And I guess you would have had a lot of chances to sort of formulate the Hedgecock angles.
Yeah. Well, there's not too many circumstances I haven't been in. that you can get yourself in a ring or in the street or in a cafe.
Yeah.
I unfortunately met two Sydney rugby league footballers at a cafe in Acton Street, and they nearly cut my nose off. And what happened was that I sent the accountant over to get our coffees, and next thing I see him sitting on his ass, he got pushed, and they walked away after coffee. I go, what's going on here? I said, hey, what's going on? He said, what, bro? I said, they're our coffees. So the first bloke said, oh, your coffee, bro. Here, have it back. Threw it all over my chest. And I've hit him with a left hook, right? And he hit the deck, and it was concrete floor, and his head bounced on the thing. The other bloke, he didn't throw his coffee at me. He hit me with his coffee cup right in the face, right? And I've just unleashed the right hand on left hooks on him. And fortunately, he went to the ground as well. And I'm on top of him, and I've hit him about 10 or 15 times, because when the police played back the video of it, they said, the senior sergeant said, mate, the bloke's unconscious. You've hit him another 10 or 15 times. He said, we're going to have to charge you. I said, I didn't know he was unconscious. I said, he's hit me in the face with a cup of coffee. I got hot coffee in my eyes. Yeah. I couldn't see. But when someone said, have a look, when they said stop, I stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. Must have been a good coffee.
So the senior sergeant said, that'll do.
Yeah.
And then I remember about 6 or 12 months later, I seen a photo of one of those guys, and the Herald Sun, he's just had a baby daughter or son from up there, and he came down here. I think they're going to bring him down to play for the what's the side down here? Melbourne Rebels or whatever. Yeah. I think they're going to bring him down here for some reason or other. But that was but I went to hospital because the coppers took me in the hospital, as they took them in the hospital too. They went in the ambulance. I went in the back of the police car, buggers, and they stitched me up in there. But I wasn't happy. It looked all red. And I thought to myself, oh, Jesus, how am I going to be from no nose? So I called Peter Lewis, and I said, I need to see you. And it was early hours in the morning.
Is he a doctor?
So, my doctor, Peter Lewis, he's a fight doctor. He's always at the fights. He's very famous doctor for the fights, always been around kickboxing and everything. And so he gets in there, he says, oh, they've done a terrible job of this. And so he took it all apart and cut a bit more off and then joined it together.
Wouldn't have been his first busted nose, I guess.
Oh, no, it's not his first busted. But, mate, it was hanging off.
Yeah.
This whole knob here was hanging off.
Yeah.
And I think you can probably still see some of the scars.
Was that one of the worst ones you've had in terms of street fights?
For a very short period of time, but they were both knocked out. But it's the damage they've done, more damage to me, I guess, in 30, 40 seconds than any other time. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And believe you me, hot coffee in the eye is not nice.
Yeah. Yeah. As we said before, eyes is not something you want to mess with.
No.
Yeah. So what about the story of when you were going to fight for the world title? And then Paul Fifield had to come in.
Johnny Moncayo, yes. And I used to look at Johnny Moncayo, and I wanted to fight him. I really thought that I could take him because he's a walk-up fighter, aggressive fighter, and would have been.
And would I be right in saying that this was the first time that Australian was going to fight for the
first
world
time
title?
Australian was going to fight for a world title in Australia?
Yeah.
And actually, it was a toss-up between Paul Fifield, and Dave Berry. Dave Berry is a great Bob Jones, black belt, tough guy, bounced for years.
Yeah.
Great fighter and great exponent. He fought a lot of mixed martial arts fights, and I don't think he was ever beaten. But anyway, so Paul got the gig, and unfortunately, what transpired there was that I was leaving. I went to the Lower Plenty Hotel where we used to do the security, and
this was just a week before the fight? Or?
I think it was about 10 or 11 days before the fight, a little bit over a week. And because I was hoping that I might have been able to come good to the fight, but it shattered a nerve in the shoulder and all that sort of stuff. It took a lot of years of rest and not rest, but working it.
A bit more than 10,
aerobics.
11 days. It would
take. Yeah, a bit like what they call it, physio. But anyway, I was walking down to the car park. The Lower Plenty Hotel used to be up on a height in a big beer garden. I'm walking down to the car park. I'd finished being up, seeing the guys. A couple of guys walking up the stairs, and they said, "Oh, Dave, there you going today? You got the fight? Yeah, yep, good. I said, "No worries. I'm going to get an early night." And I turned around. Next thing, I thought I got king hit, and so I started fighting with these guys, and one's trying to press what I thought was a knife because it was silver up against me. And I'm trying to keep one bloke between me and him because I'm thinking he's trying to stab me, right? And I'm punching on with both of them. And next thing I hear is bang, they're like, shit. And then I grabbed like that, around the barrel and the cylinder, and ripped it out of his hand. Then I started to hit the bloke I had wrapped his arm around, hit him over the head with it. Then I tried, and then I'm trying to hit this bloke, and then they both took off. And I actually chased them for a little while, but blood was squirting out like, a foot out in front of it. So I've come back, and people have run down, like Tony Thackeray and people that have come down from the bottle shop and from the pub, and and said, what's going on? What's going on? Da da da. And I said, oh, someone just shot me, and said, don't sit down. And Brian Suey, a good friend of mine, put his finger in the hole and stopped the bleeding, and the ambulance come and took me away, and all that was good. And then the police charged me because my fingerprints were on the gun.
You get to keep the gun.
But hang on, they're on. No, I threw the gun under the car.
Yeah.
But I said, but hang on, they're on the barrel and the what's the name?
Yeah.
You know who done it. We know you know who done it. Now you either tell us or we're going to charge you for firearm. Well, when it went to court, the judge, we explained what happened and how it happened and the witnesses and everything else that were there and seen bits and pieces of it. And the judge said no. He said, but I'm going to fine you.
What's going through your head?
And he fined me $200.
Yeah.
But it stopped me from fighting for a world title.
Yeah. What's going through your head though once you've been shot and you've obviously got the blood coming out? You must be thinking, I'm in trouble here.
Well, I to be honest with you, it's funny because at time sort of stops. You hear the bang, and you think, "Hang on, this bloke's not trying to stab me." And then I've lunged at him because he's tried to put the gun up against me again. And I've grabbed the barrel and the cylinder and ripped it out of his hand. And I'm starting to hit this.
So he was trying to shoot you again, you think?
Yeah, for sure. And because the first one, I think, if he had been that, because he's trying to push into center of my chest, the first one, I pushed across and it got me here and come out the back of the
in the shoulder.
Yeah, not the shoulder, just right there. Right
just
there,
in
actually.
the chest on the opposite side to your heart for the people who aren't watching. Yeah.
Towards the back of the shoulder.
Oh, it came out.
Yeah, it went through me. Yeah, it was a 38. So, and consequently, it's it's sort of things go through your mind. But the fact was, I needed to survive. I needed to live. And I went into a different mode. And
Fight or flight.
Yeah, I just wanted to kill them. Yeah. I just wanted to get them. And all I could think about was, you bastards, you're going to pay for this, But why didn't I turn the gun around and start shooting him? I did, but all I could think of was hitting him with the, and then I'm chased after him, but I only ran about 10 or 15 feet because blood was squirting out with the beat of my heart. Yeah. And I've gone, wow, if I don't stop, I'm going to bleed to death.
Lucky it was on the other side to your heart as well.
Very lucky. Very, very lucky. And because it was the right-hand side and not the left. And so I was very lucky and it went right through. So, so it punched a hole right through. So, but was bleeding pretty profusely. But the ambulance was there within about 10 minutes, and I had people come down from the beer garden and from the bottle shop up there because they heard the shot. Actually, they heard more than one shot. I think he fired 3 shots and got me with one, and that was it because it kept pushing it away. And there was a couple of bullet holes in the car door and stuff like that. So, but minimum of 3 shots fired. So, but all that goes through your mind is survive.
Yeah.
And just do what you got to do, and just keep going until you can't.
Keep the adrenaline kind of thing.
The trouble is if you stop, but if you stop, they're going to shoot you.
Yeah,
they're going to kill you. Why make it easy? You've got to do something. And all I could think about was trying to kill them. Then
you've certainly got to be a participant in that situation. If you can, channel your old man.
It's happened a few more times than what I'd like to. Like I don't really count the pen guns. I've been shot twice with pen guns. But I don't really count.
As in BB guns? Or?
No, pen guns, to put a 22 in a pen gun. You ever seen the pen guns?
No, I haven't.
Used to make a pen, used to screw it in, put the 22 in, and then just flick the thing, bang, and it'd fire off a 22.
Never seen that in my life.
Yeah. It was big in the in those days. It was running around people with pen guns. Yeah.
Yeah, and was this the occasion that I think Paul Fifield was telling me a hilarious story about him being at a gym one day? And you walked in, and I think it was like just after you'd been shot, and you were walking around normally. And Paul's just saying he's watching you walk around and say good day to everyone and chat to everyone as you do, just like everything's really normal. And he's saying, hasn't this bloke's just been shot? How the hell's he walking around so normally? And then he said that he actually followed you to outside. And then once you got around the corner, then you started to limp a little bit. Just to kind of show everybody that it was okay, it didn't affect you.
Trust Paul to follow me like that. No, well, I was shot for 45 that time, and I was shot in the back, and I was only shot from about 6 or 7 feet away. Once again, there was 2 or 3 shots fired, one into the door, one into the wall, and one in the center of my back, just missing my spine. And I thought to myself, there's a lot of people that used to go to that gym, okay, that I'd had run-ins with before. You've got a lot of power lifters there, a lot of fighters there, a lot of this and that. I'd had run-ins with a few of these people, but, at clubs or out in the street or something like that. But we'd all, everything was okay, but it's okay on the surface, but there's an underlying thing there, I guess. And the reason I walked into the gym that day was to send a message, because we used to get a lot of characters in that gym, and was to send a message that, I got shot 3 days ago. Here I am now walking around the gym. And yes, I probably would have, as soon as I got out of what I thought was a good range, I probably, because it was pretty bad. I'm the only person to survive being shot in the back with a 45 in Melbourne, Australia, basically. I think no one else has ever survived. But they fired 3 shots. They didn't find any shells because they'd obviously put a bag over the gun. So it was very well planned, and they catch the projectiles, so they weren't laying around. And I think what happened was they were standing on a kid's table, little like doll table type of thing, because my place was a 2-story place. It was right on a brick wall, and
so it happened at your house?
Yeah, I was going in the back door, so they obviously knew that where I was. They knew where I was staying. That was pretty well set up, and I reckon that when after the first shot, I think when the gas fills the bag, they've been inaccurate with the next 2, and then the table on the other side broke, and it was the bloke in the house next door that rang the police.
So were they in your house?
No, they were on the neighbour's house. They'd come down the back of the neighbour's house, up against, and then around the wall, and because it was a high brick wall, so they had to stand on the kids' table. The police worked all this out, but I remember distinctly thinking to myself, was that a shot? Then all I know is I'm through the door, flat on the ground, and then I realized, shit, what's going on? And then I turned around and I kicked the door closed, and reached my hand up on the side of the wall to turn the light off, because the back light was on. Then I realised the keys were still on the door. So I opened the door again, grabbed the keys, locked the door, walked in and went upstairs, because I figured, well, they're not going to stop at that. They're going to come in the back way, or they're going to come in the front way. So I walked up a set of stairs. So if they do come in, they can only come up one way. And of all things, I used to have a set of samurai swords on display there. So I grabbed one of those samurai swords, and I'm up the top of the stairs thinking, when are they going to come in,
I wouldn't put it past you to deflect a few bullets with the samurai sword.
No, I don't. Well, no, but I was going to go down, fight, and put it that way, and then I hear a helicopter, and then I thought, oh shit, what's going on? Then I hear the police sirens, and then the bloke, I hear the neighbour, because this is on Beach Road, where I used to live in St Kilda, and I hear the neighbour out there, and I look down through the window because I had a beautiful view of the beach directly across the road, and I looked down the window, and there's the police there, and so I've opened the window and said, come down. No, yeah, I'm coming down. And so I put the sword back and walked down and opened the front door, and they said, been shots fired. So I said, yeah. I said, I think I've been shot. I had blood running all the way down me front and me pants, and every time I walked, I was leaving a clog of blood somewhere, and my jeans were soaked. And they made me hop on I said, no, I'll walk to the ambulance. They said, no, hop on the ambulance. It's so close to your spine, you might do some damage. I said, oh, okay. So I hopped on the bed, and I'm making phone calls while I'm getting wheeled out to let my family know that I was okay. Wow. Yeah. So, but and it's funny, Mick Ghetto said, I said to Mick, he said 4 days later, I was up refereeing a fight in Brisbane on that weekend, the weekend after. So it was 5 or 6 days. And I'm bleeding quite a bit. And Mick said, what? Bloody hell, mate. You've been shot, and not only you're up there refereeing. I said, I don't want them to think they've hurt me. He said, mate, Now that next time they'll use a bazooka. I thought, I never thought of it like that.
Oh.
So yeah, but that was a pretty.
So the first time you got, this is what I am fascinated by these stories. The first time you get shot, you manage to grab the gun and start beating the other bloke up with it, and then they run away. The second time, you get inside, you close the light off, you get the keys, you get your samurai sword, and then you end up greeting the coppers.
Yeah.
Do you think that this relates back to having that sort of presence of mind when you're in the heat of the situation?
Well, actually, the doctors said to me they couldn't have passed an instrument through me when I got shot for 45 without damaging a major organ. They said it couldn't have been done. And they said it's a miracle that you're still alive.
There's so many organs to hit. It's almost
exactly
hard not to hit one.
And it went down on an angle because they're up higher. It hit my pelvic bone and come out my side.
Oh.
Right? So I was very, very lucky, but it's only about that far away from my spine. But they said, well, the reason I'm alive is because I didn't go into shock. So,
do you think that has something to do with it? The fact that you're able to sort of have that presence of mind in that sort of situation?
I think if you I wouldn't have had any reason for being in the business I was in, the security and being in the fight game, if I doubted or got nervous or went into shock over things that happen, because people can try to kill you with a knife, try to kill you with an iron bar, try to kill you with a gun, whatever. But the bottom line is it's a matter of survival, and I just always believed that that's not my destiny.
Wow.
I don't think about it that much, to be honest with you. It seemed like a lot longer. I thought I heard 3 shots, and then I find out later off the police there was 3 shots fired. And I'm thinking, what the hell was that? And it was like times I said, but then I flattened the floor through the door because I already had the key in and turned and threw me on the floor. So the force would push me through. I don't know. I don't know. I just didn't go into shock. The first thing I could think about was ringing my family, my wife, and letting her know, let the kids know that I was okay.
Yep.
And please ring mum and dad and let them know I'm okay.
Yeah.
So that was the first priority. And then, of course, when I got to the hospital, I was okay. I was coherent. I could still talk. The police were asking me questions. I said, look, I don't know. I said, all I can tell you is this is what I heard. This is what I seen. Nothing. I didn't see anybody, but I heard it. And then I heard people scurrying along the back to get out the back laneway and all that sort of stuff. So that was it. So just, I don't know. I don't know what it was, to be honest with you. Just I wasn't my time. I don't think.
It's fascinating to just think about, though, the actual that happening to you and like what you were doing. Everyone would like to think that they'd be calm and collected and the hero in this situation, but to actually be that is.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that if they're going to come in and finish it, I might be able to take one of them with me.
Yeah,
that was the point. And I guess the reason I walked into the gym was to let people know that message. I don't go away that easy.
Yeah.
And because there's a lot of people getting in that gym at that stage that weren't enemies, but they weren't friends. And the gym brings a lot of different sorts of people. And unfortunately, some of the people that were coming in there have been people that we barred from hotels or pubs or people that I had fights with before. So I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs, never have. And so there's no reason. The only reason is vindictiveness or revenge for they have done something to them at some stage or another.
Yeah, you do get some crazy people, and you would have had so many dealings with so many different people as well.
For sure.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise anybody that there's a few.
No, and the fact is that I guess I don't think about that. I just, I really don't think about that much. I just think, it happened. I'm alive and I'm healthy and I'm fit, and I don't let it worry me. I don't let it stop me from doing whatever I normally do anyway. So
you just go about it as
well. Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is let somebody know that they've got that power over you.
Yeah. Well, I remember the doctor said when I got shot in the shoulder that I'd probably never get full use of my right arm again. Well, I went through the pain. I broke the pain barrier, and I kept punching the bag, and I can do everything with it.
Yeah.
So and you can prove people wrong. I think your state of mind, acceptance. If you accept defeat, you can be beaten. If you won't accept defeat, you're never beaten.
How can somebody develop that mindset though?
Well, I had some pretty good. There was, people I looked up to, and I see the bravery, like what Richard Norton did with the sword.
Mm.
He cut his toe off and didn't make a sound. Bob Jones, and in particular, Trevor Stretch Anderson. Like, the worst part about what happened with Stretch was that he committed suicide, but only after he killed his wife, her girlfriend. And I think the shooting at the Lower Plenty was over that, to be honest with you, because he was my best friend. And as I ran through the doors of Brash's, he put the gun in his mouth. And I was there before the police were. I turned up at my house in Greensboro, where I was living with my wife and kids, and I see Stretch's things there, all his golf clubs and bits and pieces. And I said, "Oh, Stretch, where?" She said, "Oh no, he's gone." And I twigged straight away, because it was January 1983, and on New Year's Eve, he was at the Lower Plenty Hotel celebrating with us, and he wanted to leave to go to a party where she was, and he was going to do some damage. And me and him had a big argument because I wouldn't let him go. And I said, "No, you're not going to go, mate. Then don't, you don't need this. You don't need that. We'll stick together." And we nearly had a fight, me and him, because he wanted to go. And I, tried to stop him from going. And then I sat him down, and we had a talk, and a bit of a push and shove. And then we had a talk, and then he stayed for the rest of the night. And that was okay. Didn't go. But 3 days later, on the 3rd, he went to Brash's and shot her. She was working there, and the girlfriend that she was having. And in those days, lesbian relationships weren't. He was a really knockabout hard man. Trevor Stretch Anderson. Everyone who's anybody.
And you think he may have just felt humiliated by that?
Yeah, and I think he just. And I remember when I walked, because I jumped straight in my car, drove straight around, and as I was going through the glass doors, people were running out screaming. He went in, and he tried to talk to her. She turned her back on him and walked away, and he shot her 5 times. He had 1 shell left for himself, but then the other person came running over, screaming at him, "What have you done? What have you done?" And he shot her right between the eyes. Then he loaded the gun, shot himself, put the gun in the mouth, shot himself. And that's when I came through the front door of Brash's.
Just after?
He just put the gun in his mouth. Pam was laying, I shouldn't mention any names, because it's a very sad thing, but she was laying down, face down, and the other girl was laying face up. And he was a dear friend of mine, a dear friend of mine. He was part of the family, and he's someone I looked up to immensely, and someone he just, and I guess from him, because he never showed any fear. He never showed any fear whatsoever. And I looked up and admired that, and tried to model myself on his, the way he thinks. So what? So what if there's 10 of them? Let's go. That sort of bloke. And he just didn't care, and he'd fight anybody, and didn't.
Do you remember any particular times when that?
Oh, yeah, when we used to work down at the beach, the Rosebud and places like that in Dramana, and we used to run some of the clubs, and there was a place in Sydney too where we used to go up and do Queensland, Brisbane, used to do the beer garden up there, because, get a lot of Melbourne people up there through the Christmas break, so you wanted Melbourne security guys that knew what they could do. And look, we moved around quite a bit doing the security in different places, different states sometimes, and had a particularly bad one in Sydney where a few things took place, but I won't go into that. But so he was a very determined, very mentally strong individual, and consequently, it sort of was a bit, he died in my arms, basically. I got scooped up underneath him, and I'm screaming out to call an ambulance, because I could still feel his heart beating, and he passed, and so it was one of those things.
He had a pretty profound effect on you as a...
He certainly did. As I said, him, my father, Bob Jones, my brother, they all had, they were all good people, and all, and when you get to and through Bob I met Richard, and through Richard I met other people, and people like Rod Stroud and guys like that, and Justin Fortune, that, it's funny how you get a connection, and then that connection goes to another connection, to another connection, to another connection. and it all works. And I've been fortunate to be able to meet some really great people. I mean, and people that meant, what they said and said what they meant, and top of their class. Really, I can't say enough. Me and Richards catch up regularly for coffees, and I just find him an absolutely tremendous martial artist, someone who I respect. And as I said that day, the samurai sword, he cut his toe off and didn't make us.
He absolutely reciprocates that feeling as well. The way he was speaking about you on the phone.
We've been very close for a lot of years. And Bob's away. Bob's in another country at the moment, and doing
still in the industry.
He's still in the industry. He's still running things, but Bob's gone off on other tangents. He wants to write books on the Celts, and because he's a Celtic warrior himself, and mate, that bloke could street fight too.
Yeah,
and of course he was a great man too, and had great vision. And remember, he started all this, and the George Zacharias and the people like that have been around. And as I said, Frank Larciano, Michael Bergina, Eric Trey, Mick Marshall, Ed Beverlock, the names just go on. Machine Gun Charlie, they're all part and parcel. We all used to train together, and it was a really mixed group of personalities and mixed group of different style of fighters, and you had to be able to train. You can't train them all the same.
Yeah.
So everyone's different. So you train them all differently. And I think that's what given me a really good base.
Yeah.
Because, and being able to read situations like, one time, I won't mention names again, but we took over a hotel, a pretty rough hotel, out in like the Southside 6 type of place. And we heard that the security there that got the sack were going to come in there and try to give it to us. So we got told that our first night there that the old security was all in the public bar. So me and Stretch said, well, okay, we know what we're going to do. Yep, okay. So we walked through, went over, locked the door to the public bar, and just said, now what do you want to do?
How many of them was there?
About 5.
And 2 of you?
And 2 of us. And another bloke sitting in the wings. We had 3 working, starting at that time, another 3 starting an hour later. The Stretch said, no, let's not wait, because then they can set it up. We'll set it up ourselves, and we'll start it if it's necessary. And it wasn't necessary. They all just, oh, no, we don't want any trouble. We don't want any trouble. No, but if you leave it to them, then someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to walk past and get a glass in the face, or hit over there with a cue stick or a chair or something like that. So it's on. It's going to be on. Well, let's start it.
Yeah.
Start on our terms, not on theirs.
Yeah. Why dance around it?
Yeah. And that's, the sort of things that we did. And then, of course, nothing happened that time. Not a thing. Other than it all ended up talking about it, and everything was fine. And everyone went their own way.
Sounds like it's a TV show and they're making security guard wars.
Yeah, no, don't worry. There's been a few people talk to me about Bake, but it's sort of, I don't know, maybe one day.
Another really interesting character that obviously, everybody knows about is Chopper, and I know that you had a relationship with Chopper as well, and you guys were really good mates too.
Yeah, well, it didn't start off that way.
Tell us about it, please.
It didn't start off that way. Initially it started off with a bit of a problem, and there was a bit of a gunfight one night, and in a pub which will remain nameless on the grounds that it might incriminate me. But a few things went on in a sports bar that weren't nice. Certain people had an SP bookie going there, and then a couple of people coming to try to stand over. And old Tommy was an old war vet, and he was a bit injured too, and his son, and they both got beaten up pretty badly. And we got there and in time to beat the beater uppers, when one of them was Chopper. And another well-known identity too, Dennis Allen, who's no longer with us either. And so anyway, cut a long story short, they went away and they came back, and next thing you know, they unloaded a couple of rounds into the windows of the hotel and what have you. And then another time I was at Bombay Rock. We were working at Bombay Rock, and Chopper turns up at the front door, and I've been rung up and asked to come down from downstairs, and I had Alphonse upstairs, and Alphonse Gajetani, and a bloke by the name of Dale Collins, or he went by a few names, but anyway, Dale Collins was one of them. And anyway, cut a long story short, he wanted to come up to have a word to them. You know,
Chopper wanted to come
Chopper.
up and
I
have a
said,
word.
no, you're not going to go up there, mate. It's only going to cause a shit fight. None of us need a fight. We don't need this. We don't need that. You know, come back another time. And he said, no. He said, oh, that won't be a fight. And he opened up his coat. He had 3 sticks of dynamite in his
Dynamite?
what looked like dynamite in his pocket, and he had a few wires
Funny
going
old
to
weapon of
something.
choice.
And I thought to myself, you'll go up with that as well. He said, yeah, but I'll take them with me. Yeah, that was the sort of, I thought to myself, I said, yeah, okay, no, it's not going to happen, mate.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. You
Yeah,
know?
not tonight,
And
Chopper.
not tonight. Do it somewhere else. Do whatever you like, but not here. And he walked away. And then someone pointed out that I don't know what was his first book or one of his books he writes about. And he didn't mention my name, but he said the bloke that runs all the
bloke
security.
that runs the security. Yeah,
Yeah, he's the one.
quote.
Yeah, and all the rest of it. And he said some nice things, and then we sort of got to see each other. Ran into him again, and we started talking about bits and pieces. And
Just to that quote, can we elaborate on that? Because that's an interesting reflection of yourself by Chopper. That it says you shouldn't be worried about something or other, but it's more the bloke who the bloke who runs the securities you should be worried about, and that was you at the time. So he had a real respect for you.
Well,
Chopper.
it was very respectful of him, and yeah, look, he was a very willing participant, but in other ways. But he'd have a go, but he was no great fighter. But he'd have a go, but he was a very violent individual and would go the next step.
Do you think that his persona was what sort of made him such a famous figure?
Well, he would quote writers. We would quote sayings, and some of them are magnificent. Like I'm trying to think of them offhand, but I can't. But he would quote one-liners and bits like that. You go, oh my God, where did you get that from? So and so wrote that in his book, and you go, my God, that fits the situation perfect, you know. And I got to know him on a different basis and met his wife and kid and stuff like that. And he became as he got older and not too well, we became very close. He actually 3 days before he passed away, he was at a house watching the grand final of that year with Graham Webb at Graham Webb's house, and he was another very good friend of mine, dear friend of mine, and he was watching the grand final there. We were sitting in a chair, and he didn't look really well at all, and he had to leave a little bit earlier, and 3 days later he passed away.
Yeah.
But we used to go out quite a bit, and he liked it because there was no, as I said, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. He'd have a beer and have a talk, and we had a couple of cans.
Perhaps a bit separate from the crowd that he normally hangs
very
around
different
with.
to the crowd he would normally hang around with.
Yeah.
So, but then
a healthy perspective that you'd give him.
Yeah, well, mate, I found him entertaining. He was funny, and he was very quick-witted, and mate, he could quote
clever,
very clever. Very clever, could quote things and remembered it, and mate, he had a funny outlook on stuff, and he could talk. He could really, tell a couple of jokes, and the way he put things. I don't know whether you've seen him on the TV. You still see him on the TV now, and some of these gangster movies and old gangster shows about this bloke and that bloke. He said, "Oh, yeah, he was, he's always throwing off. He's just a character."
Yeah. Do you think Eric Bana played Chopper well?
I think he played him very well.
Oh, really?
Very,
so
very
you
well.
think that quite accurately?
I think probably a little bit overacted it, but I think he got the psyche quite correct. He really just didn't care. And with what had taken place, his father was a very hard man. He told me, a bit of a drunk, and ex-British Army, I think, and pretty hard life he had with his dad. But then in later years, he really cared for his dad. Cared a lot for him. But anyway, he was a character.
And the story of him chopping his ears off has just gone down in
history,
infamy.
Yeah. Well, he did that so he could get out of jail because there was too many people in jail wanting to kill him.
Yeah.
And the Overcoat gang.
Yeah.
They were going to knock him in there, and just too much. So get your ears off, go to jail, stay out of jail for a while.
Your ears off, and just in the movie, the way that they depicted it as well, he's like, "Hurry up, then."
It's funny how things transpire, isn't it? How things go, like. I fought Steve Shepard in Florida. I fought Billy Chow in Japan, and then I was going to fight Johnny Moncayo here, and because of what took place, missed out on that. and fighting in my own hometown for a world title. And Paul ended up taking it and doing a great job, and went the distance with him and stuff like that. And he often says it was a bit more like an exhibition, but he got in there and had a go and carried, because you had the fight was on, it was sold out. The Melbourne Town Hall was sold out. So that fight, and then that happened, 14 days or 10 days before the fight.
Paul Fifield's someone that I've got an incredible respect for. Having trained under him before my fight as well for the FightFit Challenge. Tell us a little about your experience with Paul. What you think about him as a person?
I remember him, as a young man in the martial arts, and he was a real go-getter. I knew his older brother Steve quite well too, and he always funny. Paul always funny sense of humour, and always with a first one with a joke. But he was a good teacher, good instructor, and Tosca Patrici's and all those. I trained Tosca to fight Stan and all that sort of stuff, and I trained Stan for his first world title fight in when he fought the Mexican in Perth. And that's what I say. Some of those fighters we've had, great fighters, really great guys mixed up with and when Tosca fought Wayne Braithwaite, I remember saying to Paul, he's the biggest puncher I've ever had the pads for. Wayne Braithwaite, an black American, went on to win a world title, held it for quite a while as a super middleweight, and mate, my God, he could explode. And when he exploded on the pads, I remember saying to Paul, I said, mate, this guy can punch. I said, he's the biggest puncher I've had the pads for a long time. And of course, unfortunately, he stopped Tosca. But mate, what a great fighter Tosca was. I mean, he fought everybody. He done just a big heart and plenty of dash and plenty of go. That's what I'm saying. You think back about some of our fighters and some of the great ones we've had, they've all been champions in their own right and tough guys, just the way they've come through. And Paul, I think, is been very much a martial artist and understands the thickness level of it needs to be. And he's been around a long time now, and he knows he's trained a lot of fighters now with people like yourself, people, beginners and stuff like that getting involved. And when you can train somebody that's a beginner and turn him into something that looks like a fighter, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And you've got to take your hat off to that. And he's got a passion for it. And have a look at him. He's as fit as a fiddle.
Yeah.
He maintains.
It's not very fair.
No, he always looks at $1,000,000.
He makes me look terrible.
Yeah, no, but
never breaks a sweat.
Mate, that's what I'm saying. We've got so much depth.
And another great one, Sam Greco and Amanda Buchanan as well. They're both guys that you've trained, and both guys that I had the absolute privilege of speaking to on
Sam
the phone
was
this
trained
week.
by Paul. Sam never ever did really much with me, but I know that he was around. I remember Sam coming to the fights a lot and watching me fight quite a bit and stuff like that. But I never had the real pleasure of training Sam. But it was more. But Paul done a great job with Sam.
Yeah.
And then of course with the K1 come on, then Sam moved over and started doing his own stuff, and now he's such a good trainer too.
Yeah, he's training some great guys. He's training Jimmy Crute at the moment, who's in the UFC. Ben Sassoli, who's not far off the UFC. If I'd make a gamble at it,
but look at Kelly Safe, great trainer. Johnny Skeeter, great trainer. All these guys have. It was a different time back then. It really was a different time, and it's all advanced, a lot more advanced now. Things are coming along a lot better. And the trouble is, if you stay in the one spot, you don't grow. But if you're willing to learn all different sorts of things and look at I never stop learning. Every time I train someone, I learn something different. I learn, see the mistake he's making there. And me and Stuart Duncan will sit down and watch fights after fight after fight and see what he's doing there, see where his left foot is. Now, see, he can't come back from that. He's on too much of the angle. It's too deep into the centre. So there's no lateral movement. So he's always going to be easy to hit with a right hand. So
you're still genuinely fascinated by watching fights, by dissecting fights, seeing what people are doing.
Well, I remember we were training at Freddie Roach's wildcard gym with Sam Solomon, getting him ready for the
really,
for it was Raymond Javel or Winky Wright. I'm not too sure, but we're getting him ready for a fight. And his trainer came down, and Pacquiao was coming in and training in another ring in the gym there. But he was watching what we're doing with Sam about the pivoting off, right? And the trainer asked if he could film what me and Sam were doing, and I said, yeah, by all means, film it, And then when what's the name fought? Golden Boy. What's his name? Yeah, what was his name? Oh, God, great fighter. Oh, I'm terrible with names. They used to call him the Golden Boy. He runs Golden Boy Boxing now in America. Anyway, sorry?
De La Hoya.
De La
Oscar
Hoya.
De La Hoya.
Oscar De La Hoya was fighting Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao pulled off the same moves we did with that pivot, and was hitting with getting out, bypassing, spinning the back leg around, and bang, 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 3 left hands.
Oh, so he adopted what you.
He adopted, because what Felix Stern does, not Felix Stern, what De La Hoya does when he jabs, his left foot was going always in on an angle like that. Like an angle like that, not like that, an angle like that. So he had to punch over his left leg, dish you with a right hand. And of course, being southpaw, all Pacquiao did was go that way, palmed him off, and then hit him with this big left hand 3 or 4 times all the time, and ended up winning the fight quite comfortably. But he was studying what me and Sam Solomon were doing at what's his name's gym, and he actually asked could they take photos and could they watch a couple of times, which they did.
Interesting.
Yes, that was good. And there's no form of flattery than being in people trying to do what you do.
Absolutely.
Which is what you try to touch.
Well, it's so unique, isn't it? That the the Hedgecock.
It's
angles.
a concept. It's a concept. It's a different concept of combat.
Yeah.
It's not move away from the power. Move in with it and just to deflect it. And that way you can. When you get it down right, as I was showing you some of those moves tonight, you'll find that it's just having confidence to do it and not do what you've been normally. It's totally different, but you really have to start that way. It's very hard to convert. I've managed to be able to convert most fighters that have come to me, like Brad Pitt, Jake Carr.
Brad Pitt.
Yep. Well, he trained for. We took him across New Zealand. He won but once again, injuries. Achilles heel, torn Achilles heel, ruined him. He couldn't continue, and he was going great guns. He had 9 fights with me and won them all. Brad was coming along different style, and he loved the style. He loved the angles, and he's seen how it worked. And he's another intelligent fighter like Frank Laciano. He's seen how those worked, and he made them work for him because he's seen the benefit of doing it, where you can hit without getting hit, and then you can put yourself in the position where you can hit again and again and again by simply moving to different sides and mix it up. And we got him a lot fitter than what he'd normally been used to, throwing a lot more punches, a lot more combinations. And so you see the growth in some people, and then they stop because of a physical injury of some description. That's sad.
That is sad. Because you can just imagine what might have been, how many champions that we might have had in Australia.
Exactly.
As well, we've had some great champions.
We've had some great fighters, mate. Some great fighters. Some of the best.
On that note as well, as I said before, I was so fortunate to be able to talk to some of your best fighters. Stan the Man Longanides, Sam Greco, you did work with. No, you didn't train him directly as much as Paul Fifield, obviously, and then Amanda Buchanan.
Yeah.
And the things that these guys said was that your ability to be a coach, but also a friend, and also to understand them as a person and really care about them as a person as well was.
I know what you got to go through to get into a fight.
And they said that they all still call you, that if they come to Melbourne, you're the first person that they'll catch up with. And Stan even says that when he calls you, he signs off with "I love you, I love you."
He does. Well, really, kickboxing was put on the map by Stan.
Yeah.
He went over and fought the Americans and fought overseas and had that big fight here and won that. I mean, really, that was the flame that kickboxing needed. And, Stan really did ignite that.
Do you think it's because he had a bit of personality as well?
But he also had great kicks and style, and he was beating people, blokes that were bigger than him and much bigger, and he was doing very well at it. And he promoted the sport, and the way he could always talk, and very religious type of guy as well, and thank God every time, but he's a good person and very approachable. Everyone could approach him and talk to him, and maybe he does talk therapies now with people and talks to companies and about making a better person of yourself and all the rest of it. And with what he's been through with the cancers and stuff that he's been through, I mean, only a warrior survives those type of things, and he survived them.
And he just got out of surgery, I think yesterday.
Yeah, because I rang him to see if it was all right to give him his phone number, but he was going in for surgery, so I thought we'd have to count him out. But then today he's rung and said that he can.
Yeah, and he mustered up the courage, and he said he told me I'm on all sorts of drugs after my surgery, and but he's still he gave me a bit of his time, which was just so awesome. I mean, stand the man.
Oh yeah.
To be able for me to be able to ring him and chat to him today, and Sam Greco as well. I'm a huge Sam Greco fan.
Oh, mate. Well, look, mate, Sam Greco's a huge heart and a great, and he fought a lot of good fighters, mate. And he's still fighting, he's still there in it. And of course, then what's happened is he's training some good fighters now too, which says a lot. Some fighters can be great fighters, but can't be great trainers. And some fighters can be great trainers, but not great fighters. But it's all little, like with Sam Sullivan, we're fighting Raymond Javel at Patanka in Los Angeles, right? And Raymond Javel had this modern haircut, all brushed up and spiked up, or spiking. And I had this plan right from the very word go. They send someone in, their trainer comes in to make sure, have a look at Sam's hands wrapped. Yep, no problem, signs off on them. I go in to have a look at his hands wrapped. And I go, yeah, the hands are all right, but this is no good. And once again, Daryl Peoples, IBF manager there, he said, what's the matter now? I said, go look, feel that. And of course, Javel's pushed my hand away. And I said, no, feel that. That's spiky. That's going to get
his hair.
Yeah, his hair was all spiked up. They had to cut the bandages off. He had to wash his hair. Good way to start a fight. Oh, we put him off his mark, mate. You got no idea. And that was a great fight. And Sam won it.
Some blokes love to have their hair done.
Oh, yeah. And of course, that the looks, but that's a strategy of mine. I said, I'm not going to say anything now. I'll say it on the night because that's going to upset him. And he's going to come at you. We want him to come at you so you can peel off him because Sam's better, not such a good attacker, but a very good counter fighter. And so he's better off when they're walking up on him so he can peel off him on the angles, catch him with the uppercuts, and which those little uppercuts, I tried to show you one tonight. You see him do it often, all the time. He's getting them with it. But so that was a very, very comical moment because Robbie Peden was there that day too when we were with Goots and Tudor. They were our managers over there in America. And of course, Jones, what's his name? The world heavyweight
Maurice
champion.
Jones?
No. Roy Jones. Not Roy Jones. The heavyweight. It was a middleweight as well. Oh, God, what's his name?
I'm not sure.
Can't think of it. He's a big heavyweight. And he come to the ring and he's putting shit on Sam. Stay and fight, stand and fight, stop running away. And I called him a black so-and-so and squirted him with water. And we nearly punched on the ring. And it was the world heavyweight champion just a couple of years before that. So,
really?
James Tunney. Yeah. And we nearly had this blue there and the marshals have got involved and everything else. And you can ask Sam about that one. That was quite fun. I had my son there with me at that stage. And of course, we're getting ready in tents out the back for that fight. And Robbie Peden walked up to me and he said, look, just be careful because he comes over and he puts his hand out to shake your hand and he grabs people and headbutts them, And I said, oh, shit.
Just like your old man taught
you
when you were a kid.
But no, that was a left jab, then headbutt. But the consequence, then I see him walking out with a couple of his mates. Big blokes, all big blokes, obviously. And I said to my son, just go and do this. And he said, no, I'm staying right here, Dad. And he picked a chair up. I said, you stay back here, don't be silly. So I walked out to meet him. And he stuck his hand out, so I gave him the fist instead of the hand. I wasn't going to let him grab on me. He said, I didn't know you were with the same team. He said, otherwise I wouldn't have been talking like that. He said, but don't ever call me a black so-and-so again. I said, well, don't ever come into my corner abusing my fighter again. He just looked at me and turned around and walked away. But thank God for Robbie Peden because Robbie Peden, he's an ex-world champion. He put me on notice. He said, be careful because he's still seeming about what happened. But they're the things you do as a trainer. You do that for your fighters.
I mean, and on that point, that note as well, you said before, not every great fighter can be a great trainer.
True.
How much do you think that this has to do with being a good people's person and being able to really relate to people?
Good question. I think what you've got to do is take yourself out of the equation. It's not about what you've done. It's about what the person you're training can do or should do. And so it's not about you being the best you can for yourself. It's about you being the best you can for the person you're training. And sometimes you've got to be harsh. Sometimes you've got to be hard. Sometimes you've got to be blunt with the truth, and how many times I told you, how many times I told you, well, you're going to keep doing this, mate? Do you want to do it by yourself? Because if you don't start doing what you're told, I'm going to throw the towel in, or something. And no, you're getting flogged, mate. You're not winning. why tell someone they're winning when they're not? You need to lift the game, mate. You left your run too late. You've got to follow up. You've got to put the foot down. All the training we've done, all this, you've got to be direct and tell them, hey, but then you've also, every time before a fight, me and Sam would go into a room and we'd have a little talk. It was always.
Is it true that you used to clear out the whole changing room while
Yes.
you're warming up your fighters?
Yeah. Oh, well, because spectators. It's all right, my own team, no problems. My own team in there, but everyone else out. Because I don't want people, because we fine-tune some of the techniques we're going to be using and some of the moves we're going to be using. Well, I don't want the other side knowing about it. I want it to be a surprise to them, And so consequently, it's a game of chess. It's all about how you handle the meetings as well. It's all about how you handle the rules meeting. And I always like to put them offside a little bit. And no, we're not going to be weighing in at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. We've got until 5 o'clock at night. We'll weigh in at 4:30 because Felix Stern's a bigger guy. He'll put on more weight if we weigh in earlier. So it's all little things like that. You've got to think about what's best for your fighter and how you can best.
It's a really interesting perspective, removing yourself from the equation.
Well, you've got to remove yourself from it because too many ex-fighters put themselves in there and they get too emotional and they start yelling and screaming at the top of their voice and other people can hear what they're saying, like wait till they come back to the corner and then calm them down.
I often wonder about that when you're watching a fight and you can hear the corner yelling out, double jab or
Of course, yeah.
And you can hear that and you're like, oh, well, no, the opponent can hear that too. So.
Well, that's true. And the other corner can hear it too.
Yeah.
And so you got to be careful. I've gone up against some good corners, and when the winky right corner, when they realized we were stepping across with our right foot and pivoting like that I showed you before, they then tried to do a move to counter it, and then we had to come back with another move to counter them doing that and then put him back into, but because he hadn't trained for it, winky right couldn't do it, sustain it, could not do it regularly, what his corner told him to do because he hadn't trained for it, where Sam did religiously what I told him to do because we trained for it. And he followed. That's the one good thing I will say about Sam Solomon is that he listened to what he was told and did it. But if you take a mile and just train to overtrain, damage himself,
jump in the Copenhagen,
do silly things, in the canal where boats are coming up and down. I mean, and you've got senior people there with him, and of course, I got very upset with that because you're jeopardising this guy's opportunity. So we've trained for 3 months for this. We've worked hard for this. Everyone's taking time out and you're doing this, what are you? Some kind of an idiot?
Yeah.
So, and as I said, everyone's got their own traits. And Amanda Buchanan was just, mate, you couldn't have had an easier person.
I'm interested in Amanda Buchanan. Was that the first lady you trained?
Yeah, first female I trained, yeah. And she was just sensational. She listened to everything, listened intently, and mate, she picked up things. But she was tough. She could take a shot. She was
trained amongst all blokes as well.
And hopping in with people like Tony Scalacci and moving around. They'd have to go a bit lighter with her. But mate, she was holding her own. And we had her so fit and so confident. And she would listen. And she would listen intently. And I can remember, I've always say, when I'm talking to you in the corner, you look at me in the eyes. You don't look around at other people. You don't talk. You look me in the eyes.
You absorb what you're saying.
And listen to what I'm talking to you about. And you do what I'm telling you to do, and we'll win this fight. And you've got to be able to say, listen, mate, you're behind. Okay, you're nearly to the game. You've got to get your work rate up. You're not doing enough. And you've got to be able to tell people what to do, and it's got to be constructive, and it's got to be correct. You don't want people running out there, just close the gap and punch on. What science is in that? You say you've got to use, and that's what I found, that I make sure that all my fighters understand one thing. We fight to a plan, we stick to the plan, and listen to your corner. That's all I ask. Listen, because we put a lot of hard work in, we put a lot of time and effort in. We've practiced this day and night. Why are you doing it differently now?
Yeah.
Why aren't you practicing? Why aren't you actually doing what we've practiced? And it makes sense. They go, oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. Well, good. Now go and show me what you can do. And I think people like Amanda Buchanan are just freaks. She was something. She just rose to the event. And didn't matter who it was, as I said, a 22-0 Japanese girl that could fight, strong girl, and we just completely outboxed and in the end stopped her. She Yeah, she's just a great fighter. And as I said, she just had that belief. If you think I can beat her, I know I can beat her. That's what you want.
Faith in her coach.
Yeah.
Well. So one thing that she said to me that really resonated with me, and she was reflecting on a story about when you guys all went to Fiji and on a fighting trip.
Yeah.
And she said that, obviously being the only female, it can be a little bit intimidating in that. But she said the camaraderie that she felt from that, and then from training with you guys as well, was just amazing. And that
she was.
You guys made her feel like a fighter and not like a woman.
Exactly. Really
stood out to me.
Mate, there's been some funny times. I mean, like we're gloved up, ready to go, and she says, "Dave, I need to pee." There's been some funny times.
Yeah.
Sam Solomon once gloved up, ready to go. I need to pee, and the cheeky bugger says, "Give it a shake, will you?" That I feel sorry that what happened with Sam, because he'll regret it. I gave it everything I could. We won 2 world titles, and then he made that decision. And he just went downhill from there. And the other fights that had been set up for him were all just give-me's so that he could retire on a win, not a loss. And basically, when you get people booing and saying that's the worst fight I've ever seen, and when you get fights that get disqualified because you're not boxing, you're rolling around the ground wrestling 90% of the time, it takes away what you did. It takes away who you were. And as you get older, and I'm getting old, so as you get older, you look back at those times, and he's going to have to look back at some of those old movies and see who's in the corner at some of his best moments. And then what he done after 25 years. I took money off him 4 or 5 times in his entire career.
It certainly wasn't about the money. Yeah.
No. I spent more money on him, and then to have the family not talk to me either. It's just, to me, okay, lesson learned, but doesn't mean that I won't give the same as I gave him to the next guy that I get, because everyone's different, and time changes, and in time he'll change. And I think I might have said to you before, his favourite movie was the Rocky, and the one that he liked particularly was when Rocky left his coach and then come back, and he said to me, he'd never do that to me, but he has, and that's disappointing. But I don't hold any gripes. But I can talk about it and see it for what it is. He got what made at one stage. He had 22 handlers, a football coach, a yoga coach, a bike rider. Mate, it's a fighting. It's a business. Throwing punches. That's what it's all about. And he was a great kickboxer too. He could kick like you wouldn't believe. And I said to him, mate, you've got to stop listening to people. You've got to stop listening to everybody. You don't need all those hangers on. You've just got to listen to what we're telling you to do. We've been this far. We've got this far by doing it my way. Yeah? You understand that. And I do understand that. I said, then why change it? Why not stick to a winning formula?
You think he could have gone on and fought Golovkin?
Mate, I had the Juco boys. They've got Jeff Horn. They had David Tua. They got Tim Zhu, and I had them going to pay him $1,200 to $1,500 a week, right? And we were going to fight Miguel Cotto. They're going to take him over to Los Angeles, challenge Miguel Cotto because he had the IBF world title. Miguel Cotto had the WBC or WBA, and Miguel Cotto is past his best and a walk-up fighter. Now I was over there when Love More to Do fought Miguel Cotto, and Love More to Do really gave a great fight, but Miguel got him and broke his ribs. And because if he hadn't got the broken ribs, I reckon Love More would have won that fight. And I was over there when he fought Chabelle Mitchell as well. Right now, I was with him in his corner and helping him out with techniques and training and stuff like that. Now, Sam always handled Love More 90% of the time in the spars. Now, a fight might have been different, but now if he had taken that fight, Miguel Cotto, I believe he beats Miguel Cotto. There's a $5 million fight, $5 to $6 million fight. Then we could fight Golovkin. Now, whether he can beat Golovkin or not, Golovkin's a style, taller boxer, can punch, very, very tight.
And an amazing knockout on the weekend.
Exactly. And a great fighter. Okay, but We can do Golovkin what no one else has been able to do. We can take him into areas where he's never been before. We can do things. We can make him not look as good as he could, and you could probably go longer with Golovkin, even the full distance, than anyone else has, type of thing. There's only been 1 or 2 that have. But I'm talking about 5 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago. So, and in 2 fights, he would have made something like 10 to 15 million. Right? And the Juco boys were going to back us up. Now, look what they've done with Jeff Horn.
Yeah.
They got the Manny Pacquiao fight. Look what they've done with
the Terence Crawford fight.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Big money. Big money. He's
for an
made
Australian boxer as well. It's amazing for us to see that.
Made for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
Because he had the right people behind him.
Yeah.
The trouble is, the manager who I hired, who was a friend of mine, and he even said to me, he admitted to me, he said, you don't realise what you got until it's gone. And we didn't realise what we lost. But he wanted to do it his way. And I wanted to do it my way. And he knows nothing about boxing, really. And yet, he thought he did. And he was trying to look after Sam. But Sam's his own worst enemy. You've got to be, it's like being a father. You can't be your friend because you've got to discipline people. You've got to pat them on the back when it's done well. You've got to discipline when it's not done well. And so you've got to give them guidance so that they can grow up and grow up with some sort of sense of what's right and what's wrong, what I should do, what I shouldn't do. You can't just let them continually do it. And Sam would continually break the rules, would continually do things he shouldn't have done. Silly things. Like, as I said, jumping in a canal. Filthy water, boats coming up and down, emptying their toilets out in the water, but freezing cold. And mate, honestly, if it hadn't have been for his friends, the ex-SAS guy I'm telling you about, who's a great guy, and jumped in the water and saved him. Now, his manager and the bloke I hired was there and let it happen. Don't do that. Of course, so I went through him like a dose of salts. You look after the paperwork, you look after the phone calls, I'll look after the fighting. And that's the way it should have been. But Sam didn't like the way I spoke to him. And obviously he's done a lot of other things for Sam and promised Sam other things as well. And so Sam jumped ship. Now, silly thing to do. Very silly thing. I said, mate, your choice. I said, but I'm telling you now, I said, a very silly thing to do. You don't fix what's not broken. And Sam, you're your own worst problem. You need people to guide you. You need someone to tell you the truth and someone to point you in the right direction, not just go, yes, Sam, yes, Sam, yes, Sam. And that's what's happened. And look what happened. Bang.
Yeah.
Jermaine Taylor knocked him out. The other bloke knocked him out. Just all gone. After winning a world title twice off the same bloke, Felix Stern, first time and second time. And we could have gone on to McGill Goddo and then gone on to Golovkin. 2 more fights.
I wish that happened. I wish
but you notice what I'm saying?
Yeah.
2 more fights.
Yeah.
Not 6 more like he's had.
Yeah.
Because he's running a very close race to being damaged if he keeps going. Keeps sparring people and keeps jumping in the rings with heavyweights and keeps jumping in the ring with footballers. I used to go down to Richmond Football Club. He would have already been there. I used to meet him down there because we trained down there a couple of times and sometimes at the Collingwood Football Club. But he's already been in there sparring all the players. You what? Pack your bags, let's go, we go.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Yeah.
What do you get out of that? You've got to remember we're a fine-tuned machine here, mate. We've got things going. We've got world title fights coming up. Now's the time when you've got to be careful. You've got to be clever. You've got to be put things in place so that the rest of your life is a good one.
Yeah.
So it's a shame.
Yeah.
It's a shame. And the good partnerships are hard to, when it happens over all those years, you go, well, okay, it must have been in him to start off with.
Yeah.
And maybe I made the mistake, but everything I did was for his benefit and to his betterment as far as I'm concerned.
Who do you think the best are in terms of MMA, UFC, and boxing? Who do you think the best Aussies coming up now are?
Best Aussies?
Yeah.
Oh, well, obviously the guy from New Zealand that's fighting. What's his name?
Adesanya.
Whittaker.
Oh, Whittaker. Yeah, he's Aussie.
He's not bad. The guy that's out of Sydney, that's I think he's a welterweight or a middleweight. What's
Tyson Pedro?
Yep. Yeah, I think he's got some stuff. But other than that, I think I love watching it. I love seeing it, and I think it's sort of going back now to stand up, more kicking, and a little bit of grappling on the ground, but not as much as it was. But I think that's had its time. I think it's more exciting to watch. Like I love that Holloway. I love watching him fight.
He's great.
That last fight he had with that bloke has got to be one of the best fights I've seen for a long time.
Yeah, I guess stylistically it was very interesting because
very interesting.
Holloway is such a volume puncher, but he didn't quite have the power that Poirier
No,
had.
the other bloke was a little bit more powerful. Yeah, that's what got him across. But different weight division, he's jumped up a weight division. Yeah. But I mean, they're great fights, and that's what I like about the UFC. They don't today. They're picking and picking. I'll fight this bloke. I'll fight that bloke. I won't fight that bloke. We're not ready for him yet. But in the UFC, they're the good fighters. They get to a certain level, they've got to fight each other. Yeah. So, and I think it's more of an honest game to it's what boxing used to be.
Yeah. Do you think that the transition from 15 to 12 rounds has had an effect on the way that heavyweights fight?
Of course,
in particular.
Of course, it has. Yeah.
Do you think that they're not as fit and agile as they were?
No, I think what happens is, well, I can vaguely remember watching Michael Moorer work out on a bag, and I counted his punches, and in one round, he threw, I think, about 105 punches. Now I thought to myself, wow, okay, for a heavyweight. And then, I've watched other heavyweights, Dave Russell train, 200 or 300 punches around in 3 minutes. Bing, 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 bing. Everything. Whereas
200 or 300 punches in a round.
Yeah. Well, most of my fighters average 450. Sam used to do 500.
Wow.
When we do the punch count, and they're not just let's bang, 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 bang. Proper punches. And it's a good way. And every now and then, go flat out for a minute. I'm counting your punches. You can't. But then I used to do 3 minutes of it non-stop. And let's watch this and let's count it. And I'd get a counters and I say, well, mate, you just threw 475 punches. You just threw 275 punches. So who's going to win the fight? If you outnumber the bloke with punches, just sheer volume.
Do you like that about Holloway as well? The fact that
I love it about Holloway. He's just every time he sees an opportunity, he's throwing a punch.
Yeah.
And he doesn't hesitate. He just throws the punches and it's the volume.
Yeah.
Wears you down. And when you've got someone throwing punches at you like that, and you've got to throw punches back, it tires you out if you're not used to it. So all my fighters are built up to being able to throw. Look at Sam Columban. I mean, he throws 300 punches around every round.
I was talking to my friend Jason Mallia, who's another up-and-coming Australian boxer, and I did a session with him, and one of the things you said was never hesitate when you're throwing your punches.
Oh no, you just got to let them go.
You'll get found out because when I was sparring, I was hesitating a little bit too much.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that's another interesting perspective as well, to just sort of not hesitate, throw your punches, and obviously something that you echo as well.
Well, exactly. You just got to keep going, and you got to set punches in your mind. You bump, you go through it, 3 or 4, 5. Bump.
Yeah.
But you do it. You can't just punch when they're trying to punch you. Don't just block and then try to punch them when they're blocking, because that's what it boils down to. They've already got their hands up. They're just blocking you, and you put your hands up. You're blocking them. Yeah. So who's winning? You've got to you catch a bloke while he's trying to throw a punch. You catch him early, a split second before his punch lands, yours lands. Sometimes knocks him out cold.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of having a confidence and a belief in yourself, and just go through the motions and go through the exercise of what you do in the bag, you should do in the ring.
Do you mind if we read out a few comments? Because we've actually had people asking you a bunch of questions, because this is a live stream.
So okay. Is it still going?
Yeah, it's 2.5 hours long.
You're kidding. Wow. Well, are they allowed to go that long?
Yep. So we've got someone said, hi, Tony Robinson said, hi, Dave, met you a few times. Would be good to stay in touch. You're a top bloke.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too, Tony.
Rachel Pinter said, did Jagger repay the favor and teach Dave some moves?
I've seen him. Yeah, no, he's a good bloke. A very, very nice man.
Bash says, what characteristics are common among the best fighters? Good question.
What
characteristics are common amongst the best fighters?
Belief in themselves, a belief in their ability, and a no give in. No surrender. You do go out there and give the best you can, and do the best you can. Because if you go out there and you think you've left something behind, you're not happy. You go, well, I could have done a bit more, and I could have won that fight. Well, why do it? Why go out there, put yourself through the pain and suffering and not give your best? So you've got to give your best all the time, all the time. And you've got to do, just got to absolutely give everything, not just half, not just 3/4, give it everything.
Yeah.
And that's the only way you're going to win.
Yeah, awesome. Who's the best fighter you fought?
Ooh. Good question. Good question. There's been a few of them. Actually,
that's another one by Bash. Bash wants credit for
it. Yeah. No, well, that's hard. There's been so many. Are we talking about in the ring or
both?
Well, most of the fights I had were knockouts. So, that's a very hard question. Very hard question. I think probably one of the most talented fighters I ever hopped in but it wasn't in a ring. It was on a square mat. Was George Zachariah, and he was only a kid. I was in my prime really, and he was just a kid coming through. But gee whiz, I tell you, he could throw some kicks and throw some punches. And then as things moved on, he started to box, learned to box better, and he was a big puncher, big right hands. I'm glad I never had to fight him in his prime.
Yeah.
But I think probably, he had a lot of talent. But as I said, I think the best fighter I've probably ever trained, and I mean even above Sam Simon, is Frank Laciano. Because he was a thinking fighter, and he just went out there and did just what he needed to do to win. And he was just a brilliant, and never got hurt. He's a school teacher by trade, and just so underestimated, and people don't realise how good he was. Percy was great, George was great. There'd been some great. Tony Quinn from Queensland, he was in Japan with me, and people like that. There's been a lot of great fighters. It's very hard to say. I can't think of anyone that specifically stands out that I've had to fight. I can think of a few people on the street, but I can't think of them in the ring. Sorry.
We've got so many people just giving props to the podcast and saying how much of they're enjoying the stories
really?
As well. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Lots
good.
Of people. Look at all of the thumbs up and approvals.
Wow, good stuff.
Look, I think we should just about wrap. I mean, we've got to get to Squire's Loft for a steak, mate. So.
Yeah, come on, let's go. Let's go. Enough's enough. I'm hungry.
Yeah. So, mate, just to wrap it up, one of the reasons why we do this podcast is so that we can sort of sample the perspectives of different people and, inspire our members or inspire anyone who wants to listen to the podcast for that matter. What kind of inspiration or motivation would you give to people who are maybe listening?
I can't think of anything else or anything better than what my father said to me. Believe in yourself, back yourself, never take a backward step, and always be willing to participate.
Awesome. All right.
And, and be right, be fair, don't be a bully. That's the most important thing. The skills you acquire from training and learning to be able to look after yourself, you don't use it the wrong way, use it the right way.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's what they're things that I think I know sounds a bit, but
I'd say it really is a really accurate representation.
Yeah, I think you've got to believe in yourself, and you've got to have faith in the fact that what you're doing is doing it the right way. And when you've got a good cause to fight for, you fight twice as hard.
Yeah.
So
that's an awesome way to.
And remember, you're not the best fighter in the world. You just don't know anyone that can beat you.
Yeah, we can't all say that, mate. You're on your own there. Anyways, mate, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Really nice to meet you,
mate. We're gonna have to roll it back and do it again because I feel like we've still got so much.
Yeah. You think about it, don't you? You think about what you can talk about, what you can't talk about, and then all of a sudden you get caught up. And you did warn me, though. You did say that sometimes we can go on too long about things, and if I have, I'm sorry. I hope most people have enjoyed it.
I've certainly enjoyed it.
I've certainly enjoyed being here, and do it again another day. 100%.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you.
Guys.